Welcome to the Pro-Black Perspective, where black problems are addressed with black solutions. Your host tonight is the author of the Pro-Black Compendium and Zuberi and the Maroons of Ma'at, the Pan-African Nationalist, Oni. Oni, what are we discussing tonight?
Peace, 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 family. We're joined today again with my young one, and we're going to discuss who are the enemies within. Who are the enemies within? I tried to give you guys only 8 as per Ketter's instructions, but I had to add a 9th one, and you're not going to disagree with me. I mean, I'm not going to call this gentleman an enemy within, but the mindset being shared is something that we need to go over. And because we need to go over it, I'm going to include it, right? But this week starts off with 4, count them, 4 BANs. So I just want everybody to join the room. Let's get started. Kofi's here, so I guess we can get started. We got 1 viewer right now, and it's Kofi, so that's good enough for me, right? All right, peace, Kofi. How you doing? But other than that, let's jump right into it. All right. So we're gonna go to. There's no allies today. No allies this week, by the way. So last time we had was Malema, which was 2 weeks ago. But yeah, all right. We're gonna start off with this. Actually, I could have not included this one. Honestly, this one is really minor, but I wanted to. But I said to myself, like, if I was gonna cut out something, I would have cut out this one. But I said to myself, let me just give this guy. Oh, sorry, I forgot to give you guys what the description was. So this one's called So Much I Want to Say, right? And we're following the African proverb from before, which says, be courageous if you would be true, okay? Truth and courage go together. So if you're righteous, if you are right, if you are truthful, then be courageous. Have some, well, for men, have some balls, right? Be a man, essentially. Here's this guy. He's one of these freaking comrades. And he goes, there's so much I want to say to all oppressed people siding with Russia. I literally cannot put it in a tweet. That's it. That's the whole tweet. That's the whole conversation. There's so much I want to say. I don't even want to click this. There's so much I want to say, but I cannot put it in a tweet. Now, again, this is a minor one. This is a minor one, but I said I gotta include this guy because this is the cowardice, this is the idiocy that is the next generation of African people. This is the idiocy that's the next generation of African people, where it's like, hey, I have this responsibility to share intel with you. I have this responsibility to convince you of the right position. Although, everybody knows they don't have the right position. But let's just pretend that they did. I have this responsibility towards forwarding the message, but I can't. And that's it. No further context, no further description, no look this way, look that way. Just waste your time. And so, yeah, you might say, hey, well, it's a waste of time. Why are you putting time on it? I just want you to know, this is like the standard for a BAN. Okay, this is a standard for a BAN. But we're going to just shift by that. Realistically speaking, I really wouldn't waste my time on that. But I just wanted you guys, just a preface, just to set you up. That's a BAN. Next BAN, this one's called Good Old African Hospitality for Grand Old NATO. Now, if you guys don't know what Grand Old NATO means, the GOP is called the Grand Old Party. The Republican Party is called the Grand Old Party. So Grand Old NATO is just recognizing that, NATO has been an enemy, an oppositional force to African people the world over for since its inception. Okay? NATO has been trying to, if you pay attention to the factions that opposed the West during World War II, both of them were opposed to the capitalist order that subjugated and oppressed people, right? Let's not say subjugated and oppressed people. Let's just say the capitalist order that took away other people's self-sufficiency in order that they can fit a role in servicing the elites abroad, okay, or the Western elites. Essentially, NATO and the quote unquote capitalist order that both the Germans and the Russians opposed was like NATO represents that order, and that order was essentially they installed both in Germany and in Russia, and of course across the African world, and of course across the Southern American world. Basically, what they do is they install puppet governments that will reduce the people from being self-sufficient and so on and so forth into little cogs in a machine that generates wealth for the people, for the capitalists, the bourgeoisie abroad, right? And so, realistically speaking, one of the reasons why people are comrades, even in America, or even in the West, why they're African comrades, is because they're opposed to this idea, this order that says, hey, you know what? Your Caribbean island is going to provide hotels for us. Your Caribbean island is going to, produce shirts for us. And if your Caribbean island is trying to feed itself, then we're going to sabotage that effort, right? And they did this in, they did the oligarchs and the kings in Russia. They did this in Germany, obviously. This is what the capitalist order does, right? This is what a lot of people are mostly opposed to, and why, realistically speaking, NATO is just not your friend. Now, living in the Western world, you might say, well, NATO, the reason why you're in the Western world is because they've destroyed your economy abroad. It's like the old-fashioned image of the buffalo heads. There's this mountain of buffalo heads, and the white boy didn't kill buffaloes because buffaloes did anything to white people. The white man killed buffaloes and poisoned rivers because if you could feed yourself, you don't need him. But when you can't feed yourself, then you need him because he has food. It's like all right, some of you guys do those hollow days, right? If you have nothing to eat on Misgivings Day, for instance, that's a holiday in America. It's Thanksgiving, they call it, right? If you have nothing to eat on Misgivings Day, you might then go and search for somebody to go eat with, right? If you're in the eating mood, right? Especially if stores are closed and you don't have any food to, like you said, you don't have any food, right? However, if you have food, you're not looking for anybody else's plate. You're not looking at anybody else's plate. And so, that's one of the principles behind how NATO operates. And therefore, NATO is just not your friend. Okay? Give me 2 seconds. Kofi says, I think the allies will be none for a good while. Real Black Gentleman says, Hotep in peace. Learning Curse says, facts. They used whatever they could to break into the economy. Yeah. Yeah, of course, they're gonna try to break into our economy. That's what it is. But yeah, Hotep to everybody, obviously. Yeah, Kofi points out, yeah, the allies will be no good for a while. Look, we messed up. Now check this out. This is the good old Africans. This is another BAN. This is like possibly, I think, let me see. Ukraine and the it's hard to say, but this might just be the BAN of the week. It's between this one and this next one. This is the BAN of the week. This is the BAN of the week. So I want to show you guys this. Let's see. By the way, that was if you guys saw that earlier, that was that's the resource. You guys could access this resource for yourselves. All right, Zanzibar's president, Dr. Hussein Wenyi, explains steps taken to support Ukrainians who are currently stuck in Zanzibar.
Ni kweli kwamba eneo hilo ni eneo muhimu kwetu sisi kwa sababu tunapokea watalii wengi sana kutoka upande huu. Na taarifa nilizokuwa nazo, kuna watalii wa kutoka Ukraine kama 900 sasa hivi wako Zanzibar na hawawezi kurudi kwao. Wameomba msaada ili serikali iweze kuwasaidia. Hawawezi kuendelea kukaa katika hizo hoteli kwa sababu hawana fedha. Tumeanza mazungumzo, wale wenye hoteli pamoja na serikali, tunazungumza kwa jinsi gani tutawasaidia hawa mpaka serikali yao itakapopata uwezo wa kuleta msaada. Kuna makubaliano ambayo yameanza kuonekana, wenye hoteli kuwapa msaada bila kuwachaji, lakini na serikali kuangalia wale wenye hoteli kwenye upande wa kodi. Lakini ukweli ni kwamba tunaona umuhimu wa kutoa msaada kwa watu ambao walioko kwao sasa wanaondoka. Kwa hiyo huwezi kumwambia mtu rudi kule ndani. Ni lazima tutafute njia ya kuwasaidia.
Okay, so you heard it. That's good old African hospitality. Okay? Good old African hospitality to the grand old NATO. Why do I say that, right? Well, I'm going to give you some context, okay? So the Africans are saying, the Africans, the Zanzibar, and the thing is that you would think Zanzibar would be a reasonably, a reasonable country, a reasonably reasonable country, right? A lot of us like the East African Federation, okay, the East African Community. The East African Community is probably the highlight of Pan-Africanism at this point. Zanzibar, if I'm not mistaken, being a part of it, right, or just proximity to it, you would think that they would get it. You would think that they would get it, but no. What you're noticing, what you're realizing is that our people buck dance for white folk. But now listen to this white person. This is a white politician. Listen to this white politician and see the difference between being a boy and being a man. No props to this white boy. I don't want to say he's a man out of respect or what have you. I'm saying he's a man because he stands by his own convictions, or because he has convictions. He has a backbone. And when I say he has a backbone, what I mean is this. You understand that you open your border for tourism, if that's what you want to do, right? You understand that you open your border to get OPM, other people's money. All right? If you're going to do that, you get other people's money. Now, you're telling me that because that all of a sudden you're no longer in it for the business, but you're in it for the humanitarian reasons. And then flip it. Here's this white boy. He's at the border of this Ukrainian-Russia conflict, right? He's at the border of Ukraine. And he's saying, look, I protect my borders because that's my job. I protect my borders because that's my job. I was employed, I was put into position for this. Doesn't matter what, I didn't do this because I'm a humanitarian. But you guys hear it for yourself.
For all illegals, if you don't, I've got a message for all illegals. If you don't want to be pushed back, if you don't want to be arrested, if you don't want to be shot, don't come to our borders. Do not come to the Polish border. Then you're safe. It's not us, it's not our police who came up to beat you up, to push you, or to arrest you. It's you who tried to break the law on our land.
Let's ask Mr. Toczynski, how many refugees has Poland taken?
0.
And you're proud of that?
If you are asking me, if you're asking me about Muslims illegal immigration, none, not even one will come to Poland. Not even one if it's illegal. We took over 2 million Ukrainians who are working, who are peaceful in Poland. We will not receive even one Muslim because this is what we promised.
But I asked not about illegal immigrants, I asked about refugees. And Jean-Claude Juncker, the Commission President, says that you're racist. You sound proud of the fact that you haven't taken any refugees.
Of course, because this is what our people are expecting from our government. That's number one. This is why our government was elected. But this is why Poland is so safe. This is the reason why we had not even one terrorist attack. Look at the streets in Poland. And we can be called populists, nationalists, racists. I don't care. I care about my family and about my country.
I don't care. I care about my family and my country. Sorry, I forgot to read the quote. What the quote was for the week was, I would never be of service to anyone as a slave. And the quote is attributed to Nat Turner. People aren't 100% sure if Confessions of Nat Turner is a real document or not. If it was just some white guy made up his testimony, or if Nat Turner really said this. But if it were Nat Turner, it's, I would never be of service to anyone as a slave. I like one of my favorite quotes out of America. Okay. So yeah. So this guy is telling you what it is. He's like, hey, look, I would not take in an immigrant. I don't care if it's they're fleeing from a war zone. I don't care. Now these people inside of these Ukrainians, they're not fleeing from a war zone. They've already left. They're on vacation. Then they run out of money, right? And what you're supposed to do is say, okay, well, what you could do, the humanitarian thing to do, would be, all right, well, you could have afforded a flight to Ukraine. You don't want to fly back to Ukraine, fly back to Poland. Okay? Fly back to some place that will take you. No, they're saying, we're going to extend your vacation, keep feeding you, keep clothing you, keep washing you, keep serving you. Keep serving you. And it's going to start costing us. And then we'll probably hit up the Ukrainian government and they'll say, you just did that shit for free. Stupid. They say, thanks for being a dumb N-word. Thanks for being a B-A-N. And they're going to move on. And by the way, white folk don't say N-word. So maybe next time I won't just say, well, I mean, my son's here, so I didn't say it, I guess. But, yeah. Let's go to and this is just a lot. There's just a lot going on. So I want to just keep hitting it. I want to keep striking it home at you guys. Oh, yeah. So this is another one. This is some images. The armed forces of Ukraine. Look, the armed forces of Ukraine. The military registration enlistment offices in Volyn are open 24 hours a day. Queues in Lutsk, whatever. Numo to arms. Let's defend the motherland. Together we are strong. And so, as you guys saw, the brother said, enhance the image, right? So you pay attention to this image. And you say to yourself, what's this? Or what's this? And also, what's this? Right? Shout out to Xbox the Marks. But he, as well as others, have pointed out this right here is the flag for Rhodesia. Why would it matter? And so this guy right here, this is Dylan Roof. Dylan Roof, you don't know. Dylan Roof, anytime you say, hey man, African Americans understand white supremacists better than anybody. Anytime you say that, just bring up Dylan Roof. Dylan Roof walks into an African American church, historically African American church, one of the oldest in the region. He walks into it, sits down in South Carolina, sits down, historically black South Carolina church on June 18, 2015, they say, right? And he just opens fire and kills 9 people. Why? Because they were black. That's it. He just walks into the church, sits down, chills, they welcome him, they sing with him, they pray for him, and then he kills them. And so one of the things that he walks around, he poses in, is the Rhodesian flag. And you might say to yourself, what is Rhodesian flag? And it's like, despite its obscurity in American political discourse, Rhodesia is well known to white racists. Rhodesian flag patches are often sold at national stores and so forth. If you guys don't know who Rhodesia is or where Rhodesia is, join the club. I actually forgot. I forgot what they used to go. I forgot what they call it now. But but what it is basically, it was a white colony in Africa. Okay? So what they did is they are promoting the colonization and exploitation and abuse of African people. This is not just Dylan Roof. This is the Ukrainian military. Like I said, his brother Xbox the Marks, I forgot to include it. Maybe I included it later. Let me see, actually. But he further pointed out, okay, so I don't think I did. All right. But he further pointed out that the fatigue pattern that they had was also from the Rhodesian army. Okay, so the fatigue pattern that they had was also from the Rhodesian army. I think, let me see if this is the thread. He says, yeah. So the Rhodesian brushstroke. He says, Rhodesian brushstroke is a camouflage pattern used by the Rhodesian security forces from 1965 until it's replaced by the vertical lizard stripe in 1980. It was the default camouflage appearing on the battle dress of the Rhodesian Army and the British South African Police, although used in smaller quantities by INTAF personnel. The design was also used on uniforms issued to South African Special Forces for clandestine operations. Rhodesian brushstroke is currently used by the Zimbabwe National Army. Shaking my damn head. So it might have been Zimbabwe. All right. Several companies manufacture new production Rhodesian brushstroke clothing for the civilian market. Right? So these people are purposely wearing the outfit. Okay? And this is the people that you're giving the good old African hospitality to. And if you don't remember, if you don't recall, even Malema was talking about this earlier. If you don't recall, the good old African hospitality is how Africans got screwed over in the first place. These white boys were on their way to China or something. Or they were on their way to India. And good old African hospitality said, hey, you guys hungry?
Yes.
My boy said yes. All right. Zanzibar is quasi-autonomous of Tanzania. Yeah, I'm saying, so Tanzania, yeah, exactly. And I'm saying to myself, you would think Zanzibar had his head on. But this is the thing that we're going to run into. These are the problems we're running into when we get back onto the continent. Real Black Gentleman says it's an interesting dynamic, full frontal discrimination. And he's okay with it. He's like, you can call me a populist, I don't give a fuck. I'm looking out for me. Sorry, that boy was boy started singing. I don't know why. I'm looking out for me. I'm not looking out for you. I did not get elected to look out for you.
Let's try again.
All right, so this is another one, just for you guys. This is another one. It says, meanwhile, fans and other pathologies have set up a group on Facebook and are patrolling Briemzili, whatever, in search of black people. Okay? So, I don't know if this is a video. No, it's not a video. This is a Facebook. These white boys are proud. They're proud to dress. They're proud to go undercover, hide their faces as best they can. You know, they all look alike, so they don't really change anything. But they're hiding their faces to go and capture black people in their community. Meanwhile, again, I'm going back to it. The president of Zanzibar is bending over backwards for the Ukrainian citizens. The same Ukrainian citizens who in Ukraine, or in this case, I guess Poland, but who in Ukraine or Poland will be searching the night for Zanzibar citizens. And you might be like, well, to do what? We're gonna keep going. I know. A lot of these BAN are coming out for the Ukraine conflict, and I just got to give you guys some context. All right. So this is another one. Imagine being prevented from boarding a train to escape a war zone, having to trek miles to the border, and then wait hours in the queue to Poland, only to be traced in the streets by far-right patrols. Hashtag Africans in Ukraine.
Wie, gdzie chce iść i dokąd. Wyszedł z parku. Dobry wieczór przy parku. Dobry wieczór przy mysku.
Yeah, so you're just getting chased in the streets. Again, we are bending over backwards for Ukrainian citizens. Free of charge. And I mean, I'm not going to say that. Look, I'll say this right here. I'll be honest with you. Right? Just because the Ukrainians are getting free in Zanzibar doesn't mean that black folk are not getting free in Poland. You know, like free of charge in Poland. I couldn't tell you one way or the other. I'm assuming they're paying. I don't know why they wouldn't be paying, honestly, because they weren't on vacation. But I mean, I could imagine if your money runs out and you're in Poland now, you know, your financial arrangements may not be all that particular. So I won't necessarily. So again, you know, you could easily make the opposite argument and say, hey, these people are free of charge too. But again, you don't see you don't see, for instance, you don't see the president of Poland. I mean, you saw the difference between the president of Poland and the president of Zanzibar. You saw the difference. See, because what I would say is the humane thing to do would be like, okay, look, you arrived to Poland. Here's what you could do: send your ass back to Zanzibar. Okay, send you back to Zanzibar. No, what you have is these people are probably starving. They're not in the rich hotel getting their food and all that kind of stuff. They're not getting chased in the streets by the citizens. And the Polish governor and the Polish president is saying, yes, we're looking out for ourselves. There's a difference. The whole community is different. So yeah, this is gonna be the BAN of the week because the whole community is different. Now, I want y'all to see. I want y'all to see this right here. It says, how did the countries vote for the UN resolution against Russia's invasion of Ukraine? 28 African nations voted in favor and called for the immediate withdrawal of Russian troops in Ukraine. Others abstained, voted against, or didn't record a vote. And look at this. This is out of, you see the vast majority voted in favor of a resolution against the Ukrainian invasion. Now, again, this is called puppet politics. This is called puppet politics in as much as if you look at the backstory of what's going on, this is like the Cuban Missile Crisis all over again. So what happens in the Cuban Missile Crisis is that American warships stop Russian warships from delivering weapons to Cuba. Okay? They stopped the fear was that they were going to go to war over this issue. Okay? What happens inside of Ukraine is that Ukraine is on the border of Russia, as you can tell by now, right? Ukraine's also, if you didn't know, the second largest country, European country, okay, behind Russia. All right, Ukraine was not a part of NATO, but it's a border state of Russia, and suddenly, Ukraine is. I mean, the NATO is petitioning for Ukraine to be a part of NATO, and vice versa. Ukraine's also trying to be a part of NATO. But what that means is that now all of a sudden, Russia will have, essentially, it's like having Cuba with weapons pointed at America. America wouldn't go for it. Now Russia is saying, I wouldn't go for it either, right? And because it kept their border security was a major concern. On top of the fact that the states that were in question, the states that are that Russia is invading, were a part of Russia during the Soviet Union, right? And the people there are ethnically Russian, right? And of course, the other side, as you have already observed, are going to be the neo-Nazis. The Nazis, the Nazi, essentially. Remember, there was the German expansion, the Russian expansion, and the American expansion. Essentially, the Russians are trying to reclaim their long story short, they're not the wrong party. Okay? Long story short, they're not the wrong party. And yet, Africans are told, yeah, vote against them anyway. Vote against them anyway. And again, like this is a respectable group of countries. This is a respectable group of countries. This is a respectable group of countries. Right? And only one country in Africa voted against them. One. And again, it's really a question of, should NATO be allowed? NATO, which is an anti-Russian organization. Should an anti-Russian organization be allowed to expand to the borders of Russia without Russia doing a damn thing, without Russia lifting a finger? Can you poke a bear and the bear not maul you? And when the bear attacks you for poking it, right? When the bear attacks you for poking it, everybody says, condemn the bear. Well, use poking the bear. Only one person says, well, why the fuck did you poke a bear? Sorry, I forgot that sounds right here. All right. Why are you poking a bear? But anyway, there was actually a pretty interesting white boy. I think I put it on the Discord. A pretty interesting white boy who said, who really explained the situation pretty well. So I encourage you guys to go to the Discord and check it out, okay? Afrojam, let's look at the comments. Afrojam says, Russian mercenaries are exiting Africa. Many are sucking up to whatever the USA tells them to. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would leave too. It's a Real Black Gentleman says, notice the abstainers, right? Joshua Benjamin says, can again command the most powerful nation of the world. Explain this. Can again, if you're going to rewrite history, then don't be shy in explaining it. Joshua Benjamin says, explain this. Can... Real Black Gentleman says, I see it as like 28 voted in favor, but 26 opted otherwise. It's not so one-sided when you look at it like that. Kofi says, and it's the mixed race countries as well. Joshua Bender says, you see Egypt as a black race, yet that race thinks that Ankh and Eye of Horus are jewelry. They are palmistry markings that none of you have in your palms. Oh, the Ankh and the... Okay. Real Black Gentleman says, Europe wants to see Russia jigsawed like it is into 50 pieces. Yeah. He says, Ankh and Eye of Horus are jewelry. I think the palmistry markings that none of you have in your palms. I'm not really following you right now, Joshua, but I got you. Afrojam says, yeah, they're exiting. Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, you have to, at the end of the day, there's war. War is a real thing. War is a reality of this world. And that's the thing that I really enjoy about this particular episode, right? Or this, this episode of the world is that, war is what's going to settle this dispute. War settles disputes. That's what it does. I keep telling you guys, this is a famous quote, but, war is not about who's right. War is about who's left. At the end of the day, the people who are going to be left in charge are the people who win the war. And this is why the most important thing for you to do is prepare yourself for the wars ahead. Because there are wars coming. Okay? There are wars coming. And that's all I can say. Well, that's not all I can say, but we're going to keep going. I think this is another example. Let's see. I am Getchy. So somebody else says, oh yeah. So look at this. All right. So it says a Russian soldier surrendered. Now I don't know. It's probably fake news, but a Russian soldier surrendered. Ukrainians gave him tea, food, and let him call his mother on video. I want to cry from how much I love my country. Right. So obviously Ukrainian woman. Right. And so he says, not invaders getting better hospitality than Africans in Ukraine. So this is, again, you have white people who literally shooting at you. Now, of course, this might be fake news, but still. You have Russians, you have white people literally invading your country. Literally invading your country with guns drawn. Getting better treatment than the black folk who are simply avoiding the battle. You understand? They're simply avoiding the battle. And yet, again, the president of Zanzibar is like, yeah, you know what? These are the people I got to treat well. I got to pay for their... Because see, this is not... You saw in the other story. You saw in the last story right here. You saw in this story. They're not talking about, oh, look, these Ukrainians gave these Russians hotels. And the thing is this, too. If you guys understand about Africa, what you understand about Africa is this. There are places you could rent for cheap, and there are places you could rent. Like, the places that white people rent, and the places that you would probably rent when you go there, right? Now, sometimes you might be able to afford the big fancy places, but the big fancy places are big and fancy, right? This is where the government is footing the bill for these people. The places that like that you or I can't necessarily afford per se. And these white folk, when they run out of money, they're going to continue getting that same treatment. This is now going on for weeks. The 5-star treatment, the treatment that the people in Africa don't even get. The government is now subsidizing for these Ukrainians. For what? Meanwhile, again, you see this. Even when this white woman is bragging about her country's hospitality, she's like, here's some tea and food and a phone call. That's all you're getting. Tea, food, and phone call. What aren't I good people? And that's really about the extent of what you hey, here's some tea, here's some food. Call a friend to pick you up. Not, well, you want to live in a 5-star hotel? I got you. You want to eat 5-star food? I got you. This is the BAN of the week. But let's keep going. I know this is a long subject, but I really want to hammer home for you guys. So this is it. This is another one. What should we make of Europe's schizophrenic refugee response? In the week we welcomed 1.2 million refugees from Ukraine. Do we really need to watch this young man being battered for climbing an EU border fence? Yes. Thread. This is a symbol for thread, by the way. What's this guy? This guy is some black guy. I guess he's trying to climb a fence because, there's a war. There's a war. And he's not, he's probably like a student or something. He's like, I have nothing to do with this freaking war. Or he's like a janitor. I don't know what he's doing, but he's not, he's like, whatever. He's slowly climbing down the fence, and you're like, oh, okay, how nice is that? Oh, they're letting him climb down the fence slowly. Are you safe, N-word? Maybe it's just love taps. Who knows? Nah, let's beat the shit out of him. Y'all notice. Anyway, right? You just got to go back and say to yourself, well, you see how many one of these things I got? Damn. Okay, we're gonna keep going. It's just to reinforce, just let you know what's going on in the world. Oh, what is this? It says me. I'm here. So what's this? Oh yeah. So this was just today. But hold on a second. Let me go back to the comment section. Afrojam says they're already rushing defectors and vice versa. Queen W97 says that is propaganda. Ukraine is losing this conflict. Yeah, they're losing this conflict. I hope so. Afrojam says many of the blacks want to get into the EU and not go home. Obviously, yeah, that's the thing. That's the issue. Real Black Gentleman says, ow. Afrojam says, I live in Europe. Almost every country has blacks, and many are in these countries because they were trying to get to the Western Europe. Yep, not worth fighting for. They're just trying to get to Western Europe. Again. Now look at this right here. This I was gonna make this his own BAN, and you can see the he/him, so you already know. But he goes, I can't pretend that it isn't somewhat painful and confusing to watch the outpouring of empathy and compassion for Ukrainian refugees and the Ukrainian people in general, when just months ago we were I don't know. My boy thinks it's funny to me. When just months ago we were having to explain why. Well, actually, no, he sounds like he's a BAN. Where just months ago we were having to explain why leaving refugees to drown in the ocean is not okay, right? And it's like, look, man, I had to explain to him. I said, look, they're white. Whites care about whites. Whites care about whites. What is confusing about this? Overwhelming evidence from the last 2,000 years should make it crystal clear that whites care about... What do whites care about? Whites care about...
News.
No, whites. Whites care about white. That's why. And they don't care if it pains you. The world should register you as insane. Because it's like, you know, these white people went through enslaving you. They went through beating you. They went through stealing from you. They went through taking all your stuff, taking your land, killing your animals, changing your diet, all that kind of stuff. They do all this. And then you're like, well, why can't you understand that we were refugees just last month? Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Why should anybody care? Like this guy almost earned his own. I'm actually surprised he's not in his own section. He should be in his own section because that's another, like that's an evolutionary. But we're gonna keep going. What was this? I guess a lot of this stuff might have been from today. All right, so yeah. Then here's the freaking. I don't know what's up with this. Somebody says Putin is diabolical. He knows Biden's Democratic Party base is black. Actually, I don't know why I'm putting this. I think today I was just like looking at this stuff and I was like, let me put this stuff here. But I might have, I don't know. Biden is diabolical. He knows. Actually, I'm just gonna skip over it. Basically, the Russians arrested some. This is the same thing. This is backing it up. The Russians arrested some WNBA player and over some cannabis 3 weeks ago. And so the reasoning why she was in Russia is because the Russians paid her $1 million, whereas Americans paid her $220,000. You know, but she's been detained over like drug trafficking or something. You know, probably not even a false charge, but I don't think that's important. So anyway, let's see. Oh crap! All right, so I forgot to. Let's actually take a little break. I forgot to explain to you guys. I'm part of the KWAZ radio network. EL says greetings, EL. I'm part of the network, so let me tell you guys about us.
This is D Webb with the Harsh Reality Podcast, asking you to tune in where we tackle the news of the day that affects our community, only on KWAZ Radio.
Greetings, everyone. This is Koku from the Bitter Medicine Podcast, inviting you to tune in to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
Greetings, fam. Tune in to The Learning Curve with me, the revolutionary matron on KWAZ Radio.
You are listening to the Pro-Black Perspective on KWAZ Radio.
All right, so let's get back into it. All right, so this one's called. Let me see. Where is it? Am I sharing the screen? Yeah. All right, Ukraine in the membrane, right? So look, it says, whoever does not make provisions to live, that is eat, is overcome without steel. Okay? Whoever does not make provisions to live, that means eat, is overcome without steals. All right? Steal means that you don't have to be violent with people who don't even prepare, who don't even feed themselves. If somebody doesn't feed themselves, you don't even have to be violent with them. They've already surrendered. The basics, I'll tell you this again, the basics of all warfare, all conflict, is the ability to survive, the ability to eat, the ability to sustain yourself. If you do not have food, you will surrender or you will just die. and nobody even has to fight you. This is why they killed the buffalo. And this is why you're supposed to protect the buffalo. If you were a Native American, you had to protect the buffalo. If you did not protect the buffalo, if you could not protect the buffalo, you were at the mercy of the whites, and the whites knew this. Okay? The whites knew this. All right, so let's actually play this video. I don't think I actually saw it. And I'll be honest, first off, you have to understand this. The Ukraine side is going to lose. Okay? If not for the global community, the Ukraine side is going to lose. And a lot of lives are going to be meaninglessly lost. Okay? If you're going to join that effort, join on the Russian side. Make it quick for the Ukrainians. That's all I'm saying. I mean, if you're going to join, I would not join the Ukrainian side. That's stupid. But yeah, insane. Not insane. Ukraine in the membrane. This is African people saying to themselves, they're going to go into Ukraine to fight for the Ukrainians, even though everybody should understand that the Ukrainians would put them on the front lines to die. If they're not going to help them evacuate, why would they help them survive? Now, fortunately, not all Africans are, brain dead. Than the 100-something, or lately I've heard 400-something Nigerians who volunteered for the Ukrainian side. And again, this is why you have to prepare your own food. But it goes, some countries have asked Ukrainian officials not to recruit volunteers in their territories to join the fight against Russia. Senegal's foreign ministry said it had condemned the Ukrainian embassy for a Facebook post calling for volunteers in Senegal. So Senegal was like, yeah, no, I'm not. Let's see this other one. Daniel Soft. This person, they show this video of this guy.
Tried to get a Congolese man fight for them. He refused.
They even told us, we are going to give you guns and you're going to fight for Ukraine. I said, hi. We're going to fight for Ukraine? We are not Ukrainian. We are black. So how can we fight? How can we fight for Ukraine? If we fight for Ukraine, we are going to die first because we are black. When they will say, oh, look at those black people, I think they are from NATO. So we have to kill them first. So how could they think that way? Come on.
Ukrainians tried to get a Congolese man.
Yeah, now the only thing I could say is this. You notice his body language, right? Especially as the white people were walking by. He was kind of like, he was low-key intimidated of loudly saying this. But I do want to stress for you guys that the amount of, apparently they're offered money. The Nigerians were offered money. Maybe this one might describe how much money it is. Yeah, okay. So it says over 400 Nigerians with military experience, have volunteered to fight Russian forces, but one of the demands by Ukraine is that Nigerian soldiers must provide $1,000 each to fund their tickets and visas. The salary was said to be $7,000, but later changed to $3,300 per month, right? Now, I mean, this is kind of telling you, right? One, it's this. You have these Nigerians with military experience, right? Now, if you remember, Nigeria has this problem with Boko Haram, okay? They're not volunteering for that. Now, again, you might say, well, hey, Nigeria's not offering that as much money as $7,000 versus $3,000 a month. And, I mean, it kind of also explains to you that you have a pool of Africans to do your bidding, right? To put their life on the line for you, right? And we're not organizing ourselves to do that, but other countries do. And so their first offer was, well, let's see if anybody's it's kind of like supply and demand, because the demand is so low and everybody understands, hey, look, you're going there to die, right? Because the demand is so low, they put up the wage, they put up the cost. They say, hey, you know what? $7,000, right? Maybe you think your life is worth less than that. And then a lot of black people lined up and said, yeah, my life is worth less than $7,000. And so these Ukrainians were like, okay, hold on a second. Then $3,300. And the black people still said, yeah, my life's still worth less than $3,300. Again, if you do not make provisions to eat, you can be overcome without steel. Just imagine you're in conflict with a white country. Okay, and that white country says, hey, if you put down, and you have your own military. They have their military. And the white country says, hey, you know what? If you guys put down your arms, we'll pay you $3,300. Your army is going to put down its arms. Unless you build up your economy, your army is going to put down its arms. Unless you build up your economy and the psychology and, of course, the sociology, unless you build up these things, your army is for sale. These are BAN, by the way. These are BAN, but it also kind of informs you on what tasks are ahead of you. Because I keep explaining, you have to develop your economy. What that means is for you to read, to discover what it means. Obviously I've given you the biggest highlights, the biggest amount of information in my last book. I intend to keep giving you more information in my books, but I already know a lot of people do not want to read. Either way, if you don't want to read my books for some damn reason, read something and figure it out. I'll give you the easy way, but read something and figure it out, because again, you're not going to win with these people. You're not going to win if you don't develop an economy. If you don't have any economic sense, you're just not going to win, because they can buy you. I did want to touch on this last thing before we move on from Ukraine. So again, when it comes to the Europeans, this is the difference between the Africans and the Europeans. Big deal. When it comes to the Europeans and the American expansion, right? The American expansion into Europe, right? The Africans, the Europeans, the other Europeans, the Russians, they say, no, you're not going to expand near me. Even when it came to Russia's expansion into the Americas, America said, no, you're not going to expand. If and when America expands into Africa, other African countries say, hey, can you expand it to me next? That's the big difference. You should not stand by American expansion at all. And I mean, I understand a real black gentleman said, hey, it looks like these people abstained. So it's not like they were really with it. It's not like they were really for it. It's not that they, you have to make it clear. Explain yourself fully and say to the opposition, I'm not with American expansion at all. Because see, when America, like I said, when America expands into Africa, like when America sends soldiers into Africa, you got people begging for them to also have soldiers there. In fact, we saw that story yesterday where the African Union, the head of the African Union, again, the largest African military body on the planet. When the head of the African Union was saying, hey, can you keep your soldiers in Germany? No, can you keep Germany? Can you keep your soldiers in Mali so that the French could keep their soldiers in Mali? This is the difference. Let's see something. Not worth fighting for. Real Black Gentleman says, so EL says, greetings. Real Black Gentleman says, Africans have to build a better theory of nations ASAP. Yeah. Real Black Gentleman says, no, hell no. Afrojam says, Ukraine are not going to win unless World War III begins. Exactly. And probably still lose, Afrojam says. Real Black Gentleman says, nah, I'm going to abstain. Real Black Gentleman says, shit's bonkers, for real. They're going to recruit the Amazonian rainforesters soon. Yeah, except for the Amazonian rainforesters have some damn sense. Afrojam, I've seen Indian mercenaries too, and obviously ones from Western Europe and the Balkans. Learning Curve says they can always pay one of us to betray all of us. Don't be that one ninja. Okay? Real Black Gentleman says, nah, I don't accept bananas as salary. Yeah. I mean, you talking about going to a war that's a lost war. Not like a war, like at least, see, here's the thing, you could say Americans, black Americans go into the American Army, right? And they get paid bananas as well. But the thing with the American Army is that even though you might be the first to die, it's very unlikely that you're going to die because you're usually fighting people with much less technology. You're usually fighting weaklings. Ukraine's asking you to fight against the second largest military on the planet. After exhibiting that they don't even care about you. See, because the thing is that when they were evacuating Ukrainians, right, and they were evacuating Africans right next to them, if they cared about you, they might have said, hey, you know what, let's just women and children first, or men and, women and children first, or whoever first come, first serve. This is an egalitarian basis. But they said, no. We're going to go by Ukrainian citizens first, period. And if you're not Ukrainian, you could just stay back. You could just walk. And they said that. They said that. In fact, I think that was one of the... I think I might have said I was done with the Ukrainian situation, but I think there's a video like that. So we might just go into that, right? Real Black Gentleman says, I lost faith in Eastern Europe. I mean, look, it's not about having faith in Eastern Europe, for me. It's really about keep the white boys fighting. The white boys should be fighting the white boys. Because when they're not, because you notice that these white folk are now talking about pulling soldiers out of Africa. They're now talking about pulling soldiers out of Africa. The reason why they're pulling soldiers out of Africa is because they're fighting with each other. They weren't talking about pulling soldiers out of Africa before. You know what I mean? We were demanding it. And we were seeing the start of it right before the war started, with Mali. We were seeing the start of it, but now even the Germans are like, yeah, let's pull out too. You understand? And then when they pull out, the Askari are weakened because the white man is making the Askari strong. So it's a good thing. It's a good thing for me. As long as if you keep you white boys keep fighting, let them fight. Let them fight. Because now the Askari are exposed. Joshua Benjamin says, did BLM leaders redistribute the wealth or run away with the money for themselves? You know that they weren't going to redistribute it anyway. There was no demand for them to redistribute it. But, they ran away with it. Or, they did what they had to do. Essentially, they used the money to elect Joe Biden. That's pretty much it. But that's all you could have done in America. Like, what else are we going to do in America? Joshua Benjamin says, people are shitty, race is irrelevant. Now, race is not irrelevant. People are shitty, definitely. Race is not necessarily irrelevant in so much as it's a matter of it's one of the tools that humans use anyway. Okay, it's one of the tools that humans use, and it becomes a matter of you have to understand what the tools are being used on this planet, and then use the tools accordingly. You understand? You can't close your eyes, and be like, hey, this thing's not irrelevant. Like it's like gender is irrelevant, except for when you're trying to make a family. You know what I mean? or if you're trying to have a good time on a Saturday night, you know what I mean? Then gender is really important. You know, race is irrelevant except for if you're trying to build a community that can actually function. You understand? If you're trying to build a community that's loyal, because here's the thing. If you're born in Zanzibar, the least if you have a question between somebody born in Zanzibar and somebody born in Ukraine as to who's loyal to Zanzibar, right? 9 times out of 10 it's going to be the person born in Zanzibar, and not just born in Zanzibar, obviously. Like you don't like obviously you could be a traitor born in Zanzibar, and you could be a Zanzibar loyalist born in Ukraine. That's not the question. The function behind race is that, realistically speaking, African people have there's a continent called Africa. There's a continent called Africa, and there's a continent called Europe. And the people of Europe want the resources of Africa. They'll do whatever it takes to get it. And that will mean and extends to displacing the people in Africa. And if you are looking at this world as, hey, you know what? Race doesn't matter, right? The reality is that these other people who are looking to get these resources, right? The world's resources from every other people, right? They're going to displace you. And an easy way to know who is of the mentality of exploiting the planet is just looking at the race. Because see, it's different when an African says, hey, you know what? I want to use the resources that was born right under my feet. You know? I don't know who Joshua Benjamin is, but he said anyone support racial power is just the next Hitler. Yeah, I mean, you know, Hitler was somebody who was just an honest white man. You know, he was just an honest white man. Learning curve, you didn't have to censor him. I mean, the reality is that, you know, that's the mindset of a lot of our people, you know? And we don't have to necessarily censor that sort of you know, like that sort of mindset. That's a mindset that is actually kind of prevalent, and it needs to be addressed. You know, Hitler was just an honest white man. Okay, he was just an honest white man who understood that his people, who were for him the Germans, were the most important thing to him. Just like the Polish guy was saying, hey, you know, Polish people are the most important thing to me. Or the Ukrainian guy said, hey, look, the Ukrainian president says, hey, look, I'm looking out for blonde eyes and blue hair. This is not, this is just a sentiment that white people carry. And because they carry that sentiment, you know, what they do is they try to tell us not to also have that sentiment. And then a lot of us believe it. A lot of us believe we should not also have this sentiment. Okay? But the thing is that these white groups are in a good, safe positions, good communities, so on and so forth. And then we have this poverty and we have this servitude toward them. You understand? We have this servitude toward them. And yet part of it comes back to this race isn't important. So again, you have the Zanzibar president who's giving 5-star treatment to Ukrainians. And you have the Polish president who's saying we're going to shoot you and we're going to beat you for your race. So one of them is giving the other race better treatment than his own people. And the other one's giving the other race worse treatment than his own people. But then Poland is, as they say, nice community, no crimes, blah 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 blah, riches and so on and so forth. And then on the flip side, Zanzibar isn't. So you know, I mean, I don't think that I'm open to you know, hearing opposition. It's a fine thing. I mean, it's different if he was like doing that alphabet stuff, you know. But this is just you know, sometimes African people are confused, and that's it's okay. Like, I understand when we're confused. Afrojam says Ukrainian was code word for white because there's no video of other white nationalities been stopped. Yeah. Code word for white because, yeah. I mean, that's the thing though. You're supposed to look after your people. That's what I'm saying. They look after their people, and it's not a matter of are you Hitler or not. No, it's the reality that you have a responsibility as a national leader towards your own people. That's the whole reason why you're the national leader. And the thing is that Africa, a lot of times, African people are the only people who do not believe that they have a responsibility to their people before they have responsibility to other people. And so we end up with, you know, confused comments, which is fine. Like I said, it's fine. We don't have to censor those comments because it's something that this Western media is trying to infuse into us. This idea that we must serve others before we serve ourselves. Whereas they articulate all the time that they are serving their people before they serve ours. Organic African Paradigms here. Shout out to Africa, Organic African Paradigm. He says, John Henry Clark said, we have lost the feeling of being the center of the world and everything revolves around us. Africa needing foreign military on their territory is that lack of. Yeah, we have lost the feeling of being the center of the world and everything revolves around us. Well, I feel like we do think we have main character syndrome. Particularly like Black Americans think they have main character syndrome because they be interested in themselves in everything. It's be like, yo, this thing's happening over there. Man, oh shit, what we would have done. You're like, what? Anyway. But yeah, I agree, you know, need foreign military. Yeah, we shouldn't want foreign military. But again, these are the Askari. The Askari are the people who are being protected by the whites. And so when the whites pull out, their protection goes. And when their protection goes, that's when you're supposed to say, hey, you know what? I don't like how this is going. You know? I mean, you should have done that before, but now is like your best time. EL says race is relevant. We Africans didn't invent the game, but we must play to win. And you know, that's one of the sentiments that we really have to understand about this world, which is that the rules of the planet keep changing. You know, the rules of the planet keep changing, and what's more, I'm going to say this later. This is going to be the last thing going on with the Pan-Africanists, but value is subjective. Value is subjective. It's not objective. Okay, that black boy that we saw being beaten by the police after he was climbing down the fence, to us, hey, that's a black boy. You know, that's a black boy. That's a black man. He's valuable. His life matters. To the Polish, no, it doesn't. It's subjective. You know, I personally don't even I'm not necessarily against what Joshua said. I think nations is something that we really have to stress and emphasize. You know, because they also, check this out. They also, well, not exactly. I guess the propaganda went against that, but to a large extent, they're also mistreating Russians. You know, they're like, notwithstanding the fact that they're white, they're also saying, hey, you know what? Let's make the Russian people suffer. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times that's what they're doing. Why? Because realistically speaking, your nation is very important. You know? So, you know, race and nation are like, race is kind of like, I do think we should pull away from race and focus on nation. And one of the issues that the reasons why we don't focus on nation is because a lot of our nations are either, you know, like run by a Scotty, or we're from this African American school where they don't have a nation, and so they can only talk about race. You know, so race is important in the absence of nation, but realistically speaking, we have to focus on nation building, but nations, we have to remember, and this is going to go back into the Book of Power. Nation is a very important, like nations do factor in race. You understand? Nations are made by races. That's something that, you know, Joshua may not know. Kofi asked, what did Joshua say? Joshua Joshua says something along the lines of we like race is irrelevant, and what we, yeah, something like race is irrelevant. It was obviously it was deleted, so I don't remember off the top of my head, but something along the lines of race. I think I was reading it actually, but race is irrelevant, and there's corrupt people like the BLM. They're black, but they're garbage, and it's like, yeah, you have a Scotty, you have traitors, you have all that kind of stuff. Oh yeah, and something like anybody who's looking for racial power is the next Hitler, but like they don't really like again, like I told you guys, I was watching this Star Trek episode, and they were like, yeah, the Nazis built a really good system for the Germans. Like they built a really efficient system, advanced, good roads, all that kind of stuff for the Germans. And they were supposed to build them for the Germans. They didn't build them for any other people, though. And we're outraged that they didn't build them for other people. But realistically speaking, if you talk about the roads of Zanzibar or the ruins of Zimbabwe, those were built for the Zimbabweans, and maybe they were built for other African groups, but sometimes they weren't. And that's perfectly fine. The people should build for themselves. You should not be building for people across the planet. You should not blindly be building for other people. There could be a rationale behind saying that humans should build for other humans just off of the merit of humanity. But again, value is subjective, and not everybody's going to share that value. To many, and this is going to be on the Pan-Africanist section, but I'll tell you guys right now, humans are not more valuable than livestock. Okay? We believe that humans are more valuable than livestock. But humans are not more valuable than livestock by any objective measure. You could subjectively say that humans are, right? But you're going to run into people, like if you say, hey, I'm more valuable than your cow, so I'm going to steal your cow, and you're not going to do anything of it because you're not going to harm a human over a cow. That person who has the cow may well kill you. And you could talk about whether they're Himba, whether they're Fulani, whether they're whatever. They may well kill you. Or like you say, you're stealing from somebody's, or you're taking fruit, off of somebody's, what somebody believes is their property, right? They may kill you. You might say, hey, I'm more valuable than an apple. I'm more valuable than a pear. But if you understand human psychology, realistically speaking, value is very subjective. And the thought that humans are more valuable than animals and plants is just a human fantasy. It's just a human fantasy. But anyway, let's keep going. Race is relevant. Yeah, you didn't play the game. Organic African Paradigm says race is intrinsic. Yeah, race is intrinsic. You have to understand that. EL says race first. Afrojam says he may have been having a psychotic episode. Yeah, the thing is that black folk, Afrojam considered he wasn't making sense from the first comment. Yeah, I didn't really understand the Egypt part. A lot of times black people have this angst, this want to correct other people for, like, it's actually on behalf of the European. I don't get it. I mean, I get it and I don't get it. The Europeans' propaganda is very strong. I remember a long time ago, looking over this, I think they call them the 10 Commandments in the Bible or something, right? But this idea that thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill, and all that kind of stuff. These are like the ethical rules. And yet, I noticed a long time ago that these people were stealing, these people were killing, these people were coveting their neighbors and all that kind of stuff. And I realized that maybe if you look at these same commandments and just added for the master at the end, right? Or from the master at the end or something like that, or whatever. But you just ended it to say that, realistically speaking, the demand was you don't steal from the master. You don't kill the master. You don't, then you kind of understand what the program was. And so a lot of us kind of speak through that programming where we're like, the white boy says, hey, you got to be humane. You got to be nice to other people. You got to serve other people. you got to serve the master. You got to treat white better than black. You know? And because that's the mentality that's going, like a lot of us are going to repeat that. And we want others to go along with it because I don't know why. You know? But again, this is why I gave you guys so much evidence to say, hey, look, even if you think what's wrong with giving these Ukrainians 5-star treatment, you have to look at the world. How the world is operating right now is that black folk in Zanzibar are not getting 5-star treatment. Okay? Black folk in Poland are being chased around, chased through the streets. Black folk in Ukraine are being denied refuge. And you're giving these Ukrainians 5-star. That's the context. The context is that the only people who are winning, only people who are getting good from this are the white folk all the time. And yet we're condemning black people for saying, hey, you know what? No. Let's put our own people first. Like everybody else is doing. And so it's like we have to ask ourselves why we do that. Let's see something. Joshua Benjamin. So Learning Curve says, Joshua Benjamin, your privileges will soon be restored. Thank you for being a community member. Right. Afrojam says, race was not invented by whites. People need to stop saying lies like that. Other races of people have identified other races long before European colonialism. Yeah, absolutely. Like again, the ancient Africans had like they used to call white people Tamahu, the sea people, right? And we were Halasu, you know. There's an ancient diagram showing different people, and on top of that, the ancient Egyptians were telling us, hey, you know what? You got to beware of the wretched Asiatic, because he never conquers us because he's not strong yet. Okay, he's not strong. So he never conquers us, but he's always wandering, trying to conquer us and fight us when we're outnumbered. Eventually, he does conquer the ancient Egyptians, but the reality is that this pathology, if you will, goes way back into ancient times. You know, and it's nothing to do with Hitler. It nothing to do with the Germans per se. It is a natural, like it's what you would consider scientific. It's what you would consider biology if you didn't have your subjective idea that humans are higher than animals. You know, if you notice patterns in lions, you will call it science. If you notice patterns in tigers, you will call it science. If you notice patterns in alligators and antelopes and ostriches, you will call it science. But as soon as you notice patterns in human beings of different hues, it becomes unscientific. All right. Learning Curve says no. So Kofi asks, "What did Joshua say?" Kofi Learning Curve explains he compared race consciousness to being Hitler. Real black gentleman says, "Stress nation theory. We have to see conventional African nation states as scalar and malleable. We need a nation state that breeds and expands and contracts over time." Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm not really opposed to this Russian expansion, because I'm saying to myself, look, if I were, imagine this. We got a nice, powerful African nation, right? And then America says, hey, I'm going to set up shop right next to you. And we're just going to sit down and just take it? Or we're going to extend NATO into Africa. And we're just going to sit down and be like, yeah, sure. Right next door to me. Why not? You know, and meanwhile, you know, Putin saying, hey, look, man, those are my people on the other side of this river. On the other side of these mountains, those are my people. In fact, they were a part of the USSR just 50 years ago. Or just 20 years ago. You know, so that's another thing. Organic African Paradigm says, race key to reproduction. Nation is key to power and economics. Race is key to identity. Yeah, exactly. That's it. That's it in a nutshell. You know, it's key to reproduction. It's key to reproduction. It's not unimportant. It's really about, preserving your gene pool, because you could say it's unimportant, but then think about this way. There were not originally, but there's this guy Blumenbach. He's the one who makes this, the modern race theory as we know it, to include the Negro and the Caucasian and all that kind of stuff, right? And so he names 5 groups. He says, the American Indian, right? I forget what he calls it, but whatever. American Indian, the Negro, the Caucasian, right? The Mongolian, and the Australian. And guess what? The American Indian and the Australian were wiped out by the Caucasian. They wiped them both out. And then they nearly, and allegedly the number is that they might have wiped out 2/3 of the Africans. So when Organic African Paradigm is talking about reproduction is the key to race, he's letting you know that, these people are actually wiping out other populations, yet they're telling you to explain to condemn you for trying to preserve yourself, for trying to reproduce yourself, for trying to remain on this planet, because the Australian is gone. The Native American is gone. Learning Curve likes to remind us about these different examples. You're going to see a fully white boy talking about he's an indigenous American. And the thing is this, that he's not telling you, he's not saying, oh, I'm an indigenous American because I converted, I said I paid the people to call me indigenous. No, he's saying he's indigenous because they bred him out. Somewhere in his gene pool, there might have been a Native American, and they bred him out. And this is the fate that awaits us as people. Because even if you look at quote unquote African Americans, particularly, but not just exclusively, because you could see this in the Caribbean islands as well, right? Or even in parts of Africa. But if you look at African Americans in particular, a lot of times you're going to notice people with complexions, right? With complexions that just wouldn't even fit the profile. Like if they were, actually, I'll show you this later, in fact. Table that. All right. Let me just go through these comments. There's actually a lot of comments. Real Black Gentleman says, these political boundaries we recognize as tripwires to African excellence. Yep. EL says, everybody in the chat is not necessarily black. Expect some people to come muddy the waters. Yeah. Learning Curve says, anecdotally, I understood Joshua to be a confused dissenter. I put him in timeout so he could listen a little more. Real Black Gentleman, I hope he's joking. This is breaking news. Cameroon joins NATO. I hope he's joking. All right. Last. And then Learning Curve says, the Cameroon thing is not a surprise based on their history. We have to impact their consciousness. Well, I hope you're joking, because that's a whole surprise BAN of the week. Anyway, surprise, I'm a BAN. All right. That's what they're going to do. All right. So, this is not as bad as the other ones. I probably couldn't even delete this. Yeah, let's just skip over this one. Let's just delete it. It was basically some idiot saying that he wanted a Steve Wonder biopic. It's not even that important. Let's go to ABA. I actually don't disagree with this one. Let me see if I could even. So basically, the point is this. It says, I actually don't disagree, minus the super Negro. Black folk thinking they're super Negroes. And it's just basically, I want to say, if Africans identify as Americans, why would they care about Africans, right? Like, why would they care about Africa if you identify as American? And that's one of the things you got to realize about ABA in general, is that they are identifying as Americans, right? So it says, COINTEL has been in effect for years. Who do these people think they're fooling? I know undercover app when I see one. So this is one of those examples of the black woman. She says, they said if you're black, you should just walk. And so the Nigerian student, Jessica, has kept in touch with us about her journey out of Ukraine. She's among the hundreds of thousands of people fleeing the country, and one of many Africans in Ukraine who have described facing racism at the border. So this guy, Nas Escobar, so I thought it was Nas, because I think that's Nas's name. But it's not Nas, I guess. But he says, you can expect more of this. Most countries will put their citizens first. See, again, it's about nations. This is not the exception. This will be the rule. So it's best to improve your home country, like black Americans have been doing for the last 400 years. Now, anybody who understands black American situation knows that they were not necessarily improving their home country. Like, it doesn't make any sense. But anyway, So this guy says, you talk nonsense. Hold on a second. All right. You talk nonsense. Better if you were just silent. Does America put black Americans first? Which 400 plus year improvement are you bragging about? Racially targeted mass incarceration and police genocide of black Americans, economic castration, miseducation, gentrification, idiot, right? So then this guy says, to go from chattel slavery to where we are now is an improvement. You would be hard-pressed to find another example of this in the world. Now, of course, everybody else has this example, but it's whatever. But do not worry. As we change our immigration system, you too will get the Ukraine experience, right? And so then this person accuses them of being police ICE. Now, immigration control or something like that, right? Now, what I would say is this. Now, I would say this is, I'm not like, real talk, I don't even, like, again, like I said, I'm on a fan, like, minus the super Negro part, I understand this. You know, I'm not even a fan, like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, I'm a fan of African emigration. You know? I'm not going to say I'm a fan of leaving Africa. I think that we really should develop and build up Africa. I think it's a misconception to think that black Americans built up America. But I think that in so much as he's saying, hey, build up Africa, like he's not in the wrong. You know, as Machen used to say, a broken clock is right twice a day. You know, or some other idiot was some idiot was saying, I don't know why I said other idiot, but some idiot was saying, he said if you were to say today is New Year's, Happy New Year's every day, you might be right, you know, on New Year's, but you know you're not wrong, you're not right generally, right? But yeah, I would say that when it comes to black folk, I mean when it comes to this ABA message, I would say, yeah, you know, like white boy, like I said, white boy would tell me go back to Africa, and I don't blame him. You know, I don't blame him. I say, yeah, thank you. Like I realize in retrospect that he was giving me good advice. You know, these ABA are taking up the message that the that the Republican is saying, right? But in reality, it's not bad advice. You know, I think we are like, hey, no, why are you calling the police? Let us come. You know, they destroyed our country and therefore we get to steal. And it's like, yeah, you know, I get it, but I also can say, you know what? I mean, because I know it'd be hard. I know it's difficult. I know, like, basically the easy way is to come to the West. But what happens when you come to the West is that the West only gets stronger. You know what I mean? Like, essentially, you're dividing your forces now. So let's say you had 6 people who were like, hey, you know what? This situation in this country is garbage, right? And then those same 6 people, now one of them goes to America, 2 of them go to Western Europe, and 3 of them go to Eastern Europe, right? Now you have 0 people in that African country who could have sided with you. And you might say, well, now they're in these other countries, and, you know, they're in Canada and they're in wherever. Because apparently, like, most people do not, like, only 3% of Africans really come to America, right? But notwithstanding, or some small percentage. But either way, you know, now you might say, well, they can now gather resources and then come back with it. But you begin to realize that one thing you'll notice is that we're here in America, right? And we're not gathering resources to develop Africa. You understand? We're not developing and creating connections and all that kind of stuff. In essence, it's very, like, it's not really realistic. It's something that we tell ourselves, you know, to comfort ourselves, right? But it's kind of like the old quote, you know, people are rich in excuses to, you know, to safeguard their instincts and their opinions, right? And their prejudices. But essentially, we're out in the West, and we're not really developing and gathering resources. Like we're just supporting the American machine. You know, by and large. And so, the African Americans are saying, hey, we're building up. Like they're not. You're just supporting the American machine. At best, you are recruited into every American war, right? And you fight on behalf of the Americans. That's it. But you're not developing your independence at all. And we're gonna see that later on as well. Learning curve, which again I apologize. I might have said I said something that was unconsciously rude, right? But he says, are we not willing to take the technological hit? Yeah, I mean, again, like, and the thing is that you don't even have to take a technological hit. I mean, it's complicated, but like we don't even have to take the technological hit if we just stayed and said, and use our resources to bring in people in a sense, but we're not even trying that. Like we're really just falling into the into the trap, right? EL says the Ma'afa took much of the labor force out of Africa, so it stands to reason that the solution to our problem is to stay or return to Africa. Exactly. If we, that's it in a nutshell. It's in a nutshell. It's like this white boy came to Africa to steal labor. Okay? He came to Africa to steal labor and steal resources. And now, instead of him, stealing labor and stealing resources at gunpoint, right? He's stealing labor and stealing resources. Well, he's getting the same labor and resources, but the people there are convinced to do so. And again, I told you this already. I told you this in the other one about the military strategy, which is if you do not prepare yourself to eat, you can be overcome without steel. People do not need to, as EL says, brain drain and capital drain. People don't need to do a brain drain and capital drain without. They don't need to use guns. They don't need to use, if you can't feed yourself anymore. So they had to use guns when you could have fed yourself. When you had your empires, when you had your kingdoms, when you had your chieftaincies, if you could have feed yourself so nobody could get you to work for them. But now that you can't feed yourself. So now the question becomes, let's not leave Africa. Let's get us to that food independence. Let's get us to that self-sufficiency. And that self-sufficiency is what everybody's opposing the bourgeoisie for. So like I said, again, World War II had two factions. It was the Nazis and the communists and the capitalists, okay? And the capitalists were pushing onto the Nazis and the communists as well as every other people on the planet, right? The colonized and so forth, right? They were pushing onto them to no longer be self-sufficient, okay? And what happens is that the Nazis and the communists stood up against that, but we later on side with the capitalists to destroy the self-sufficiency of other people, right? And this is why I say ideology is one of the most important qualities that a human being can develop. This is why I say, guys, go get this Book of Power, because what the Book of Power equips you with is the ideology of a freer people, because ideology is what's going to, like, that's where Joshua was coming from. Like, ideologically, he was aligning with the West, and so ideologically, nothing I'm saying makes sense. I'm sounding like other people who are opposed to being self-insufficient. And that's probably the phrasing that we should start using, that, these people have self-insufficiency. And this is what's driving African immigration, self-insufficiency. And so we really have to work on that problem, and emigrating is not going to solve it. So, I mean, I'm not really about the ABA. I'm not going to say that they're and they might be feds and what have you, but even feds, like, a part of being a fed is making sense to people. Making sense to people. Self-insufficiency. That's the critique. So, Real Black Gentleman says, Nigeria needs to break up while Eastern, Western, and Southern Africa need to unite. I want to see 40 nations in Africa, not 60. Radical African territorial realignment. Yeah, well, we're not going to see it until we do it. Because the Ascari have an interest in Africa as it is. You know, like for instance, you talk about Fulani and you talk about Buhari. Like he has a deep interest in Fulani having hold of the Yoruba and the Igbo. He has a deep interest in that because one, the Igbo territory is the minerally rich or the oil rich territory, right? If Nigeria says, "Hey, look, let's give," if the Fulani say, "Let's give the oil rich territory to the Igbo," right? Then the Fulani and the Yoruba are going to be that much poorer. Because what you see with Nigeria's terrible economy is that they're kind of getting by on selling their oil to America and wherever other countries, right? And what happens inside of that breakup, if you break up these different countries, that Igbo country is the only country that's going to be selling to America. And if that's the case, then the Fulani are no longer going to be able to sustain themselves off of that sale. Now, obviously, there's the self-insufficiency that I just spoke about. If we were about self-sufficiency, we wouldn't have to care about selling oil, selling resources, or what have you, to other bodies. But because there's that self-insufficiency, then they have to hold each other together because they are resource extraction sites. Okay, they're resource extraction organizations or plantations, if you will. And because of that, you're just in this terribly silly and precarious situation, but they're going to fight to hold on to it. They're going to fight to hold on to it. So EL says we have a brain drain and a capital drain. But that's about it on the ABA. I mean, obviously, I don't like this Nas Escobar person. I don't know who it is, honestly. I think they're usually wrong, but I wanted to go over that and just tell you guys, yeah, you know what? Obviously, they're not going to be loyal to our people, but we also can't just stick by and say, hey, we should definitely be a part of this, you know? So this is, of course, something that some people say, which is military is the manhood. A military is the manhood of a people. The military is the manhood of a people. One thing is that, you know, sisters could tell you, they like military men, even though these military men are basically working for the white man. Like, hardcore working for the white man. But they like military men. And so I'm going to give you guys this quote, which is, realistically speaking, an army without good planning is conquered with one club, right? And we're just going to play this little video and all that kind of jazz. All right, so I don't know if you guys saw that. So let me see what the comments are. We should push for a United States of Africa. The U.S. likes the balkanization of countries to make them non-viable. Real Black Gentleman says, compare and contrast. You got to have regionalism first. EL says, I can't say it enough. True negotiation only takes place between equals. So you have this. I think the first one was, I can't remember which military it was. Let's see. Whatever it is, though, what I want you to understand. Okay, see, that's why I don't scroll through. I don't scroll through comments. I don't know what that's about. That's why I'll be like, yo, let me not scroll through comments. All right. Y'all see. All right. Anyway, the point being, though, this, right? You have one African military, right? And you have these European militaries, right? Maybe the first one was the Russians. Maybe it was the Ukrainians. The point is that this soldier is being prepared for even wild circumstances, right? And then the other one is doing Zumba. And so the question becomes, when they meet on the battlefield, right? Who's going to come out on top? You know, this is if you guys know from the Pro-Black Compendium, I kind of called Shaka Zulu a psychopath, right? I said he was a psychopath because he was killing black folk, like a lot of black folk. Now, partially to expand his territory and defend himself against white aggression. Obviously, you have to understand that you want to defend yourself against white aggression, but partially also because when the Zulu are preparing to encounter the white folk, they're preparing like these people. And believe me that they actually do defeat the white armies. Whereas when the other Africans are preparing for the white armies, they're preparing like this. And the white armies take them over. And the Zulu take them over. So what section is this? You know, obviously it sounds like these are the Manginas. Yeah, they're the Manginas. You know, and this is what you call the men in Africa, or the men in America, and so on and so forth. I part of me sometimes wants to have this video camera on and just have me lifting weights. You know, not necessarily like heavy weights, but part of me wants to just be lifting weights because I want you guys to understand that as a man, your body should be sore right now. Your body should be fit right now. Okay? As a man, your body, like the other day, I was actually just walking to the store and my legs were sore. You know? Because of the squats I was doing. But like, that's what. Now that's not the reason why I don't like exercise, because I don't really want my legs to be sore. You know, because when your legs are sore, it means you can't really, like, you know, when threat comes, you can't really do much because, you know, your body's sore. But I still want you to understand. I still want you to understand that you're not going to win fights with those people. But I also want you to get this too, that you will win fights against those people. Okay? You will win fights against those people. And I mean, I don't gotta say nothing else. I don't gotta say anything else. Okay? Let's see. EL says, I remember that Trump wanted to negotiate with single countries in Europe, not with the European Union. Zumba. Yeah. Real Black Gentleman says, national territory means something to a people. Africa needs a bona fide India-sized country on its turf on general principles, developed hard and fast. Organic African Paradigm says, LOL. I think Alex Welsh is a troll. We'll keep an eye on Alex Welsh. It says VOM today. EL says, our crisis is really a manhood crisis. Yeah, and Organic African Paradigm says masculinity. Organic African Paradigm was just recently talking about masculinity too. So you guys make sure you check out his channel as well. Real Black Gentleman says, not really. Africa is pretty young. We have a wisdom crisis. Yeah, I mean, we have... See, that's why I'll say it this way. You know, like I said, I play video games occasionally. I try to make video games. You know, one of the principles inside of a video game. So there's this old school time video game genre, or a gaming genre, a tabletop genre. The Americans created it. It's called role playing games, right? role-playing games, the basis is that, and see, this is the interesting thing about role-playing games. The history behind it is that white people used to have war games, right, where you had tanks, like World War II simulations, and they used to have fun playing that. And then what they did was they converted the system of playing like ships and tanks and all that kind of stuff, and made it into individual people. Okay, they make it into individual people, and so the ways that you change the statistics behind weapons, how this tank differs from that tank, and this airplane differs from that tank, and what have you, right? Like the airplane has bigger range, or the airplane can avoid an attack from a tank, and the tank has higher durability than an infantry soldier, and all that kind of stuff, right? The way how you change that system into people was that for the role-playing game, they created 6 attributes. They said, well, this human being, like let's say you compare, those days it might have been a hobbit, but let's say you compare, because it's roughly based off of like Conan stories and all that kind of stuff. But let's say you compare a barbarian to a scholar, right? And how they differ. You say, well, they differ in strength, they differ in constitution, right? They differ in intelligence, they differ in wisdom, and the other 2 stats would be charisma and dexterity, right? So I kind of changed up that system, and I added in discipline, and I said agility as well, but I also changed constitution to physique and charisma to charm. Long story short, what I want to say is this: wisdom, discipline, right? Strength and all the other stuff. These are the qualities of human beings that you have to develop. That you as any sort of human being has to develop. Your charm is another one that you have to develop. So we're in this crisis. So when we say, hey, it's not necessarily masculinity, but it's wisdom, I want you to understand that part of masculinity, if you will, and part of femininity too, is developing all 8 of these attributes. Your discipline, your wisdom, your intelligence, your charm, your strength, your physique, your dexterity, your agility. Develop all 8. Okay? That's what you're supposed to do as a man or a woman. And in fact, if you look at, when you guys get my my puzzle book, so a lot of people are not really getting the puzzle book, but when you get the puzzle book, you'll see that in the puzzle book, I explain, these are the attributes of men, these are the attributes of masculinity, these are the attributes of femininity, and in those attributes is, a man is strong, a woman is strong, a man is fit, a woman is fit, a man is wise, a woman is wise. You want to be all 8 of them. So yes, we're not developing any of them, but I would definitely say, hey, look, let's do wisdom, let's do discipline, let's do everything. Develop yourselves on a physical level and on another level, on a supra physical level, if you will, I tend to say metaphysical, but some people don't like that. So, all right, not really. Africa is pretty young. We have a wisdom crisis. Yeah. How can we say over my dead body if we're soft? Yeah, exactly. We're too much like lambs and not enough like wolves. Okay, I'll never be against more wisdom. Yeah, El says he'll never be against more wisdom. But yeah. So that's it. That's the manginas of the week. And you see, the thing is, this mangina section was really for those men who kind of complain like girls, but this is still like, come on, if this is the hardest, if these are the killers of your community, doing Zumba, if they're killers of your community are doing Zumba, like, you're in trouble as a people. We're gonna go over this. Oh yeah, so this was like I said before about how the American is ethnically being wiped out. So I want to ask you guys this right now. Why is it the only people who know about pre-colonial Africa apparently are bedroom colonized? Like, why is it the people who seem to think that they know the colonization the best, right? Who understand pre-colonialism the best are also the most colonized? It's basically a rhetorical question, is to say that that's not true. So here's something I want you guys to understand. Physically, a woman completes a man and a man completes a woman. Physically, a woman completes a man and a man completes a woman. So as without, so within, right? Spiritually, a woman completes a man and a man completes a woman. So I wrote this obviously back in like maybe 10 years ago. And back then, I would use spiritually instead of metaphysically, right? But it's basically the same thing, right? The spiritually incomplete woman is known as feminine, and the spiritually incomplete man is known as masculine. Femininity and masculinity complement one another, right? So, in this idea is that this idea right here is this. It's actually a little bit more, like I don't usually talk about it anymore, right? But the idea is that men and women are two halves of one, okay? They're two halves of one. You know, we fit together like a jigsaw puzzle. You know, the penis and the vagina. I'm being a little bit graphic. My son left, actually. But anyway, well, he went to the bathroom and then I told him, yeah, you can stay out of here, right? But the penis goes into the vagina, okay? And you just meld into one form, okay? Why do I say this, right? That's how we are physically. And so now I'm going by this older principle, which is as without, so within, right? So as it is outside of you, so it is inside of you, right? So inside of us, even our personalities on a interpersonal level is like we're half. We're not complete, you know? And this is something that you're going to notice as you, like if you haven't noticed already, as you get older in your life, you're going to notice that you as a man or you as a woman have some different view. Like you look at things differently from the woman beside you, you know, or the man beside you, or the opposite gender just looks at the same thing differently. And although I'm not really too, you know, as, you know, spiritually deep as I once was, and I may be like, hey, humans have no value and all that kind of stuff. What I'm saying from this paradigm over here, right, is that essentially, and you could say it's a chemical thing, you could say it's a hormonal thing, because we do have different hormonal distributions and all that kind of stuff, different chemical distributions. But in essence, if you just take up the male's view all the time, or you just take up the female's view all the time, or in essence, realistically, you're bound to have competing viewpoints, but neither of them are better than the other, and they work best in concert. They work best together, you know? So I could say it this way, in fact. I remember this was actually a real thing that happened to me. Or even it's just a real thing inside of the human experience, right? I'll say this. I was sitting down one time talking about something. And, you know, I was bragging about myself at the time. I don't know why, but I was, right? And some teenagers overhear me, right? And what happens is these teenagers are gangbangers, okay? Now, they're teenagers, but they're gangbangers, which means that, you know, if you're in New York and you're a gangbanger, 9 times out of 10, you're armed and dangerous, and you're on a mission to kill somebody, okay? Right? You know, you're just on a mission to kill somebody. But they're kids, as far as I'm concerned. So I start saying I'm the greatest, blah, 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 and then one of them shouts out to me or something. No, I think I say something like I'm a king or something, right? Like, you know, the conscious rhetoric, you know, kings and queens and all that kind of stuff. And I guess a king might be a reference to a gang at the time, right? So this young teenager then takes issue with my declaration and wants to, you know, bring violence to me, right? Which is perfectly fine. Because I'm like, hey, look, if this punk little kid wants to bring violence to me, I'll beat a kid on the streets. I don't care, right? Right? Because like I'm a man. You know what I'm saying? Like if it comes to it, you know, my adrenaline rushes, my testosterone goes. You know, I'm older than the teenager, right? But I'm not that much older than the teenager, right? I'm a man. I'm ready to kick his ass. He might be armed. I don't care. If I'm quick enough, I could beat his ass before he could pull out a weapon, right? Now, I'm sitting out next to my ex-wife, well, my wife at the time, right? And she goes, no, just leave him alone. Don't say anything, right? And so, and you know, for the kids' part too, there were other boys with him, you know, who were like, hey, just leave him alone. He wasn't talking about us, blah, blah, blah. But like, we as men, we're going to go at it. Or we as boys or, you know, hormones or whatever, we were going to go at it. And, chances are I would have lost my life. I mean, if he was armed. And if he wasn't armed, he would have just got his ass beat. But the point being, or, like one of us would go to jail or some shit, right? The point being, though, is that, that feminine energy, if it wasn't there, and I mean, you could have probably said it was, if the feminine energy wasn't there in my ex-wife, like, we as boys would have just fought and killed each other. Just one of those things that, and you'll notice this. You'll notice that this is something that boys are doing all the time in the absence of women. And then on the flip side, of course, you might say, well, what about women? And you're like, well, it sounds like women are the better party. But like women, if you're really paying attention, women surrender at any old fight. Or they just give in at any old conflict. To the point where like a lot of times we as black people, we often say, why do women give it up to Mookie, or why do we not, so on and so forth. And it's like, realistically speaking, that's just a part of her like she needs a man. Like men need women and women need men. And without that, she's going to just give in. She's going to cave in to whatever man. Like if you're talking about like I would say this, if Ukraine and Russia were led by women, one of them would surrender. One of them would sympathize with the other. Whoever was led by a woman, they would sympathize with the other right away. Be like, hey, this conflict's not worth it. We're risking war. Like a lot of times, I'll tell you guys honestly, like women, if you want the voice, like I'll tell you this, for instance, when the war started, a lot of women were like, why is America trying to get involved in Ukraine? Right? And even at that time, where I was like, hey, where everybody's kind of like, whoa, we shouldn't, like where I'm thinking that nuclear war is a possibility. Even at that time, as a man, I'll be honest with you, as a man, I was like, yeah, I could see why America would get involved. Now, women, there's like very few women are going to tell you should get involved in a nuclear war. like very few women are going to, but like men are, like, let's be honest, like no sexism. Men are just that, like, spiritually broken in a sense. And it's not to say that, because it's not wrong. Like a lot of men, like a lot of guys are in the audience can be like, yeah, you know what? If that's your ally, you have to go and fight with your ally. Even if it's at risk of losing everything, you have to go fight with your ally. A lot of men are you guys know it. You guys are listening. This is the balance part. This is why I just want you to understand that you don't. It's really, I really went on a long tangent there. But this is really like the balance part. Let me look at the comments. I know some of you guys are like, wait a second, Oni, what? You wanted? Look, I'm saying we're just like men, women, we're all just incomplete without the other. And you gotta understand that you want to form your partnerships. You want to have this stuff because that energy, that energy is actually necessary for your functionality and for the functionality and safety of your planet. Organic African Paradigm says we have plenty of scholarships in Africa. Masculinity is the lacking. We have Kwame and Nkrumah. We have Pio Lumumba. We have Cheikh Anta Diop. Organic African Paradigm says Africa's problems is too much wisdom and not enough intelligence. Real Black Gentleman says all we do is spy on our own. We know what we need to know about us. I beg to differ. Intelligence isn't the problem. So Organic African Paradigm says, growing up in Africa, the elders always pacify us and focus us on installing cultural fear. My upbringing in Africa was fear indoctrination nonstop. Curiosity, courage, fearlessness was completely discouraged in my country. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, Organic African Paradigm also tells us a lot about his experiences growing up in Nigeria. So definitely appreciate the brother for that. And I mean that's the thing though. Like men. And that's the thing too. You see, it's just like I said, there's two men. I believe, yeah. Two men in the audience. Two men just talking, and then it's like, hey, you know what? Let's dispute, And I tell you, like women around would be like, hey, let's make peace together. I mean, it's just one of those things about us as human beings. I don't know. I don't want to give it some bigger, deeper philosophical meaning as our ancestors have done, and as is probably right. I don't want to, because I tend to try to, not be so anthrocentric. But again, you see this also in other animals. You see the same aggression in male lions as and the same different personality between male lions and female lions. It's just something about femininity and masculinity also impacts our personalities and our reasoning and so on and so forth, even in the same environments. And again, like I said, you see this in lions, you see this in tigers, you see this in birds, and so on and so forth. Now, why do I bring up all this? Well, because of this guy, Brown Sunjata. Okay? A Pan-Africanist who believes in colonial gender binaries is a whole contradiction. So you really don't care about our ways of life before the colonizer came, huh? You just in it for a name change, good garments, and reggae music, and the chance to flex on the unconscious, huh? So this is the context, and of course, this is another trouble. Although she's not under, yeah. I mean, I don't know what to say about her. But she says, I agree, a lot of these so-called Pan-Africanists are just Eurasians with a tan. They just want to darken destructive Eurasian ideals, not eradicate them. But here's the thing. Look at this guy. Look at this guy. And I mean, like, again, I'm not really a fan of featureism. I'm not really a fan of whatever. What I want you to understand, however, right, is that these are the people, like I said, the most colonized people. He's soft, he's weak. He's look at his posture, chest caved in. Everything about this guy is like, and then it's like, ugh. Like, there's so many things wrong with this guy. Like this is. But and then look at this. I clicked on this page by accident. Never saw this before. But look at this whole shtick, as they say. There really is a pipeline from those who believe in gender and racial essentialism that was imposed by the West to those who buy into pro-capitalist and patriarchal politics of race uplift in the 21st century. All seems like the same fascist shit with less power on our side. I feel really bad for anybody whose political practice is based on where cis male leaders in the 20th century had the best analysis. Based on which, our generation must discover our mission and fulfill or betray it, not draw its poetry from the past. So look at this right here. Oh my gosh. Why is this guy following him? All right, it's okay. All right. Look at this right here. This is the weirdest statement. Some of you guys don't even understand the statement right here, so I'm going to explain it to you. But look at this. Pan-Africanist third world theorist, doctoral candidate in philosophy. In what school, obviously. Right? Let me show you this right here. This is something you guys got to pay attention to. I feel really bad for anybody whose political practice is based on which cis male leader in the 20th century had the best analysis. So what cis, I'll tell you guys what cis means. Cis means biologically male. Okay? So it's as to say that when you say cis here, as to say that a cis male leader is a bad thing, you're saying that a trans male leader wouldn't have been a bad thing. Or a cis female leader wouldn't have been a bad thing. Or a trans female wouldn't have been a bad thing. You understand? Now, what? So again, this is one of those enemies within. And again, like I said, this is like a weakling. This is a scrawny piece of like this guy in real life sits next to you and says, "Hey, shut up. Let me tell you something." Easy punch in the face. Like, this guy is not talking big to anybody in real life. Like, look at this posture. Like, this guy is like a caved-in chest. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. Like, I'll give him kudos for not being fat, I guess. Right? But this is just no. Like, everything about this guy, like, and this is the thing that you guys got to look at these people sometimes. Like, there's no musculature to this person. I don't know if you guys saw, like, what I mean, I'm not going to tell you that I look too, like, 100% muscular, obviously. You know? You guys see me. Sometimes my shirts are, my shirts are small. Like you can't necessarily see the musculature that I've developed over the years, obviously, and that's fine. You don't have to be, buff to the extreme. But you can't look like you can't be shaped like a little girl. And you're a man. And you're talking to other men. And you're trying to talk for the race about other things. So that's why I didn't go in on this Cheryl lady. Although I don't really recognize her too much. So I can't really say, I think she is problematic and she does say weird things. But as far as I can tell, she's not bad looking. And so, not to say that you want to go by whether somebody is good or bad looking, but she's not horrifically, this guy doesn't even, he just doesn't, there's no reason. There's no, this guy, you got to think about it this way, right? Shaka Zulu's sitting there and he's like, hey, look, we're going to have to go onto the eastern flank, right? You're like, yes, I understand, bro. Nice melanin, dark, chiseled, strength. No homo, but, this is a man. Right? And you probably understand. This guy is like, we need to go to the western flank. Shut the fuck. You're bruh. No, we ain't going to no damn western flank. And I'm not saying that, having a good physique means that you're wise. I'm not going to say that. I'm not saying that, being a little scrawny piece of shit means that you're not wise. And I mean, this guy is obviously, he made it clear he's not wise based off of everything he said. So it's nothing to do with that. I mean, you could obviously look like this and still have wisdom. That's fine. But again, he looks like this and doesn't have wisdom. So he doesn't have the discipline to improve himself. Doesn't have the physique. Doesn't have the strength. He doesn't have the charm. He's talking shit to Pan-Africanists. For what reason, I don't know. But then he's like a little piece of shit. No disrespect. So yeah, look at this. Look at this freaking name. Nkrumah's airline. Oh my gosh. Brown Sunjata. Sunjata wasn't already brown? What does this even mean? Oh. Grown. This is the freaking enemy within. But I do want you guys to understand. Look, like I said, this is a bedroom. This is the guy who bends over for white folk. Right? And the reason why he bends over for white folk is because he's weak. It's not even a, ugh. But I want you guys to understand, again, men and women is just, the gender binary is an ancient thing. I forgot to, I don't know if I explained this to you guys. I think I explained to you last week. But the gender binary is just a basic thing that African people have been reproducing and producing for thousands of years in order to reproduce. In fact, the thing about gender binary is that Westerners, there's this, I tell you guys, I used to take women's studies courses back in university, right? There's this book called Way of Seeing by John Bergman. Check it out. I had to take a film theory, a women's film theory class or whatever, right? And they required us to read this book. And basically what this book does is that the author is going around the world and he's looking at ancient images, right? Ancient pictures. And he's like, only in Europe, in the Christian era, right? Only in the religious era, pretty much, right? Do you see gender non-binaries? Okay? And that is the patriarchy, essentially. You basically, women are, the Adam and Eve story. Basically, Eve caused a downfall of man, and therefore she must suffer, and she's a piece of shit, and men are better than women, right? Men can't trust women, all that kind of stuff. That's where this comes from, right? But before that, even if you look at ancient Chinese art, ancient Indian art, and especially ancient African art, you have men and women on equal footing. The binary, though, okay? And so one of the things you're going to do, I want you to do, one of the things that you do after you study this stuff is that you look at the African art. Okay, you go to the museum and you see all the stolen art, you pay them a quarter or whatever, and you look at the stolen art, and you're going to notice a lot of giant gender binary art. Okay, you go through the ancient African pantheon, right? So whereas you go to the Greek pantheon, they took the African pantheon and they made it Greek, and they have a bunch of gay shit going on in there, of course. But you look at the ancient African pantheon, and it's just a bunch of binary, man and woman, Asar and a Set. That's it. Mother and father. That's it. Okay, it's Adam and Eve. It's not Adam and Steve or whatever, right? That's a Caribbean joke. But anyway, but of course the Adam and Eve is not us. But anyway, but what I'm saying is that the gender binary. Okay, that's it. This guy is trying to tell you, hey, no, that's not what it is, and you're just pushing, that's some old bullshit, and that's why it's one of those enemies within. Let me just look at the comments. We can move on from that subject. And of course, I want to say again, thanks everybody for sticking around with me, because I know it was we're going a little long, but I appreciate all the likes too. I got 10 likes, so that's pretty amazing. Also, at most, I had 13 people. Now it's 7, but at most I had 13, which is pretty good. My upbringing in Africa, so on and so forth. EL says, right, I think a man has to be ready to throw his life away like it's nothing for the right cause. For the right cause. Men don't know their lives. No, men don't throw their lives. They stand on principles, right? So Real Black Gentleman says, we stand on principles. Yeah. EL says, our ancestors said liberty or death, right? Afro Jam says, it's a funny looking multiracial. Yeah, I mean, a lot of times you're going to notice that the people who are the most toxic in our communities tend to be the people who what are you even doing here? I remember it's just like, ugh. And that's why I was talking about this earlier. I said the thing that's happening in America is that this individual is the new African. The new face of Africa, of blackness. And slowly it's going to dissolve. A lot of times you're going to notice that outside of the hood, a lot of black people are dissolving. And not for any natural reasons. Because there could be natural reasons why. Because again, remember, complexion is not fixed. You understand? It's not fixed. Human beings have been shifting and changing complexions for generations. It's just a part of reproduction. In reproduction, certain traits are passed down and certain traits are transformed entirely, just made anew randomly, right? So it's nothing to do with that. What you're going to notice, however, is that sometimes people are mixed and descended from recent white ancestors, or recent by recent I mean their parents are white, but I'm telling you, one of the things that you're going to know, it's all over. It's all over. I mean, I shouldn't say it. I shouldn't say who it is. But there's that guy. He's very well appreciated in black circles. He's a mulatto. I'll say it's Jared Ball. His mother is Jewish or something. And it's nobody cares. And I remember at one point there was this debate between him and some other guy who also had a mother who was it's what's going on? This is the face of blackness. In fact, I was actually invited to I'm not really invited to too many speaking positions, obviously, but I was invited to a speaking position, and he was a keynote. And it's well, wait a second, this is all about Africa and Africans, so on and so forth and so forth. And it's that's the keynote? And I mean, I get it. He's a bigger name than me. You guys notice who I'm talking about. Some of you do, right? But at the same time, it's this is slowly happening, especially in America. It's slowly happening where, literally people who are mixed, not even descended from mixed, not people who might have, recessive genes coming up, or might even people who might have random transformations in their genetic structure. No, this is literally the son of a white woman. And these are the faces. This is happening all over constantly, where it gets weird after a while. But yeah, you could see from that guy, he was just like that other guy, the guy I just showed you, the Sunjata, Brown Sunjata. He's funny looking. He doesn't look like it's a transformation. It just looks like something like he fell out of a pale woman. He fell out of a pale woman, and that's most likely his story. But yet he's telling us what Pan-Africanism is about. He's telling us what pre-colonial Africa is about. He fell out of a pale woman in America, and he's telling us what Pan-Africanism is about. And we're going along with it. It's weird. It's weird, but that's the alphabet squad for you. Real Black Gentleman says, real men land concerted blows. Yeah, it's really about the strategy. Kofi says, he could be Nkrumah's grandson. I think they are mixed. Yeah, Nkrumah mixed with that Egyptian woman, for whatever reason. EL says, good point, Real Black Gentleman. Afro Jam says, liberal females are suddenly involved with Zelensky because the media makes him look like a general. I don't even know who Zelensky is. Not because of stupid liberal talking points. Who's Zelensky? Mr. Untouchable's here. Shout out to Mr. Untouchable. He says, shout out to Oni dropping the good game. So Mr. Untouchable was there yesterday on Shoot the Breeze with the Bit of Medicine podcast. So make sure you guys check it out. Real Black Gentleman says, irregular blackness. Trigger Happy comes through. He says, would you say that a mixed person changed their racial whitewashing trajectory if they married black and continued instilling that to their children and children's children? If they married a black what? This guy's a queer. Who cares? As soon as you're a queer, I shouldn't talk like that, right? But as soon as you're a queer, who gives a shit what you do? You're not even going to reproduce your line. You're just a waste of everybody's time. He's promoting transgenderism to us. Who cares? Afro Jam Correction says the Ukrainian president. So he says, so let me go back. It says, liberal females are suddenly involved with Zelensky because the media makes him look like a general. You said involved with him? But yeah, Zelensky's hopefully he just surrenders. He's a freaking comedian, literally. Trigger Happy says, I think the mixed convo is interesting because we have to find a way to have an answer to this, and that requires organization. Well, look, in the Book of Power, I do explain that, genetically, you can, over, I think 16 generations, just erase any trace of having a white ancestor, So, this goes on for, realistically speaking, it goes on for any people. But because if it goes on for a mixed person, it would go on for a white person just in one less generation. The only question is, to what extent do you want to introduce impurity into your gene pool? So a lot of people in the diaspora are not going to have 100% pure genetics, obviously. But we can breed out our impurities. Or we can, not breed at all. But the point is that we can breed out our impurities. And we're so minimal that we can go to Africa and be absorbed in such a way that Africa remains genetically pure. That's not the same with regard to Europe. Europe can contaminate the European gene pool. Asia can consume the African gene pool. Okay? We as the African diaspora can get our genetics, purified in a sense. If we want to. So it's not really, I don't really necessarily carry the same angst against mixed people because I follow a mathematical paradigm, right? Where realistically, even if for instance, you're 98%, let's say you're 90% black, you could, the next generation of you within 100% black woman would be 95, and after that it's 97, and after that, so on and so forth. Now, the same could go on if you say you're 70% black. Then the next generation would be 85, and then you go up to 92, and then you're back at that 90 plus. And the same with, even if you say you're 50, the next generation is 75, and then after that is 87.5, and so on and so forth. So ideally, you would want to. Now, of course, when you go into the less than 50%, then you're getting into the territory of so on and so forth. But again, Africa is not at a deficit for people. It's not at a deficit for people. So it's not like you have to consume these mixed people or what have you. But realistically speaking, if, Africa can consume an individual, it's just a question of it's just a question of why are you consuming individuals? Are they serving your national interests? This queer isn't serving your national interests, so who gives a shit? You know? And the thing is that without a nation, you don't really have national interests. So, you know, that's also another question altogether. You know, let's develop our national interests, and then we can discuss, well, who do we invite into our nation, right? Anyway, so Real Black Gentleman says it takes 2 generations to turn black to blue-eyed white. Exactly. Trigger Happy says, like the Navajo Nation, accepts like what people who are 1/4 Navajo. So we need to figure out whether black people should only be 2 black parents or 1 black parent. Yeah. So again, you know, it's really not about black people as much as what's your nation. You know, that's the issue. You're like when you say you're going to accept somebody for what? Where's your nation? What are you accepting them into? What kind of citizenship are you offering people? What are you offering people? To say that you're accepting them. Like, what are you offering them? You know? Trigger Happy corrects. It says, I meant like someone who is straight. I came late. Sorry. I was gonna say something immature, like, you know. All right. Getting on 7 says Zelensky is the Ukrainian president. Real Black Gentleman says, okay, 3 or 4 generations, but it don't take long. Offer Jam says, I mean in love. Oh, okay, they're in love with the guy because he seems like a... Yeah, you know, if you become like a man, like if you're looking like a man, sure. You know, and do you mean like liberal whites or liberal blacks? Because hopefully it's not liberal blacks. Ugh. All right, autocorrect. Jared Ball is also pro-alphabet. Yeah, that's the thing about these people is that it goes back to the tree. The axe looks like you look at the axe. The forest looks at the axe and says, "Oh, the handle looks like one of us." You know, they're gonna come inside of your community and say, "Hey, I'm a Pan-Africanist. I'm a better Pan-Africanist than you. I'm like Sunjata. I'm like Nkrumah. Okay? But let me tell you something. I don't agree with cis males, and you shouldn't either. I'm a philosophy student, and so on and so forth. Like, these white people prep these mulattoes and say, hey, these stupid ass black folk want to accept these mulattoes as their own. So we're going to give them these mulattoes, but we're going to give them these mulattoes with our way of thinking. And so that's why I'm asking Trigger Happy, what are you accepting them into? You know, the thing that you really should say is that you're supposed to have a ban on outside groups or even mixed people serving in your administration, in your power centers, positions of power. You're supposed to not have them in positions of power, but here's the issue that black folk are running into. Black folk themselves, with the exception of the Ascati, right? Black folk themselves are not in positions of power. So what in the world are you trying to negotiate? You know, it's like you're sending them into what? But here's the difference, though. Like I said, I go to a conference, and I'm not the keynote. And I mean, I get why I'm not the keynote. I'm not popular, sure. But this mulatto is. Pro-alphabet mulatto's keynote of a Pan-Africanist black nationalist speaking venue. And I mean, I get it. He's popular. People might tune in just for him. That's a problem of the black mind. But y'all not listening to me. But, you know, we're going to keep going. I see grandkids of black men be blonde haired. Yeah, I mean, you know, human genetics is such that, you know, there's no dominant gene. There's only reproduction, right? Afro Jam says American Indians are not setting those terms that all nonsense the U.S. government set up for them and is destroying them. Yeah, that's what I meant by organization. This convo is tied to organization. Organization should be tied to trying to build and work towards a nation. Yeah, definitely. You want to build and work towards a nation. So we're gonna go on from that guy, but you guys can see this guy's like a punk, you know? Be like fucking. Like, you guys gotta not like punks, by the way, you know. So this is a Nevolutionary. It's Bumbleclaw. What is? Y'all see this? It looks like it's empty. Oh no, I think it's loading. Okay, so there's no. Wait, was this? Oh, okay. This was this week. I didn't label it, but it's basically that story of the black woman who was denied in Ukraine. But we kind of went over Ukraine. You guys get it. So this is March 6th. Okay, this is just the fan Africanist. So this is gonna be good, guys. I know. We're wrapping up. So this one's first off is children as leaders, right? So it says don't tear down a fence until you know why it was put up. I want to tell you guys, I've watched the BET Black Panther movie. Okay, the BET version is like a cartoon or whatever. And at one point, these Black Panther saves this kid, and like from this like I guess a nuclear reactor about to explode or something. And he takes him to his parents, and they're like, and the parents are like, no, the Black Panther says, "Why is the kid here?" And the parents were like, "The boy insisted that we talk to you, and that he sees you in action because he's your biggest fan." And so then Black Panther's like, "So we listen to kids now?" And then just walks away, kind of. But like, here's the fan Africanist. So the fan Africanist, there's a lot of twisted things about the fan Africanist, and part of me is thinking that that guy Joshua who was here earlier, right? That he has an issue with fan Africanists and kind of thinks I might be one, you know, or he has an issue with pan Africanists like this, and he probably thinks I'm one, and that's why he was taking his issue with me. But that's one of the reasons why sometimes when it comes to these subject matters, like you should just take up, if you hear somebody, take issue with what they say and not like your projection of them. You know, but this is one of the fan Africanists, you know, the ancient Egyptians, you know, quote unquote. Some people will call them Hoteps and all that kind of stuff, but I wouldn't call them that. But still, an African Egyptian soul from out of this world, trapped into a skinny little body from the Congo Africana. Oh, it's a woman. Okay, alchemist and high priestess. But she goes, some adults may not be ready to hear this, but the kids are more intelligent than we give them credit for, and more spiritually evolved than we think they are. We should really listen to them. And then she gives a kissing sign, I guess, right? Okay, I just want to say, this is a fan Africanism. I mean, I didn't really have to do this one. This is fan Africanism because, like, no. Like, you guys hear my kid in the background. This guy doesn't. Like, the thing that you're going to pick up on, I want you guys to pick up on this, is that children do not develop outside of their development. You know? And so what happens is that when you have those smart-ass kids, like those kids that are saying stuff that are deep and all that kind of stuff that you're picking up on when you send your kid to the public school system, and actually that was one of the things I took out, was this other boy was talking about, but I was going to make it its own section on the BAN, on the evolutionaries, but what you're going to realize about these kids, right, is that they are being indoctrinated, okay? They are being indoctrinated by these Europeans to repeat those, to say those things to you that you find so unusual and so deep. You know? So, like, for instance, you guys notice with my kid, because my kid doesn't really mess with the public school system, he's not going to have an opinion on Ukraine. Okay? Your kid of the same age will. Because they're going to the public school system, like if your kid's in the public school system, they're going to the public school system and their white teacher is telling them, you know, Russia's a very bad country because Russia is doing this sort of thing. So what you need to do is basically they're going to tell these kids about Russia and how bad Russia is and have them write stories about Russia and tell them stories about blah, blah, about the big bad blah, 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 blah. And then your kid is going to be like, well, yes, you know, I believe that Russia is a terrible blah, 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 blah. And you're going to be like, man, kids are so deep. Not realizing, actually, the public school system is invented to corrupt your youth. And so there was this, like I said, there was this post. I don't know if I could find it, honestly. I'll probably look for it a little bit. There's this post of this guy saying that he was like, y'all need to, like, I was going to put him in the Evolutionaries because of the fact that he's sitting by and taking this. But he's like, y'all need to take your kids out of y'all got to go homeschool your kids because my niece came out of school and said, no, because my son was claiming that there was like teasing a girl over being a virgin, but she's 10 years old, you know? So I'll bring it up. Let me see if I can bring it up. There's actually a poem I wrote a long time ago. There's a poem I wrote about squirrels. You know, you want to look at nature. One of the lessons of the like I said, you know, back when you could have called me a hotep too, right? But anyway, one of the lessons in ancient Egypt was that nature has a lot of answers. You know, and one of the things you're gonna notice about nature is that as you walk and you notice the wildlife, if you can notice wildlife, a lot of times you do not see babies. You know, a lot of times you do not see baby squirrels. Okay? The reason why you don't see baby squirrels, but you see squirrels, is because the squirrels have enough damn sense to not let you near their babies. Now, what black people have is that they do not have the sense of a damn squirrel to not let others near their babies. So this is one of those guys. Like I said, I was going to add him into the Nevolutionaries or the BANs. I don't know. But basically, he's like, homeschool your kids if you can. I had to get on this 5th grade boy today for making fun of a girl for being a virgin. They're 10. And so it's like, you should have been on top of this kid. But when you're not on top of this kid, what you're going to realize is that this is how they're developing you. You know, I tell you, sometimes I think about putting my kid in I don't really want the public school system, but I think about, you know, having them around these other neighbor kids who are in the public school system, right? And I tell you, one time I was walking by these neighbor kids, and I'm telling you, they were way more articulate than my boy. My boy is not that articulate at the moment because, you know, I was supposed to give him siblings. One thing I want to advise you guys is that if you're going to have a kid, have more than one. Okay? At least have 2, right? That's what I would tell you. I was supposed to have 2, but then my ex-wife was like tripping, and I was like, yeah, I'm not going to have another kid with this lady. And I just never had another kid. But, and I you know, at this point, it's like, you know. But anyway, what I want to say, though, is this, right? I'm walking by these neighbor kids. They're really articulate, but this is what they're articulating. They're like, I'm going to go kill, like, they're like maybe like 1 or 2 years older than my boy at the time. And they're like, I'm going to go kill that person. He's effing with me, blah, 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 blah. And you're just like, these are little kids. They're little kids talking about killing each other and meaning it. Shooting each other, meaning it. And it's like I said, like these are 10-year-olds, and they're not, you know, hey, you're a virgin, you 5th grader, you're a virgin, that's nasty. That's how it was. That's how it is. They're serious. Go and have sex right now. Real pressure for kids because I remember, look, I was a smart kid. So I was like, yeah, I'm not going to have sex because I'm not be having sex with a kid. Right? I was, you know, when I was a kid, I was thinking that. I'm like, yeah, but isn't she like 10? You know? And I'm 10 too. But it's like, so I'm like, ew, isn't that pedophilia? You know? For some reason, I was thinking along the lines. But like I'm telling you, a lot of these kids are not thinking along those lines. They're like, hey, I'm deficient because I didn't have sex yet and I'm 10. And this is like the reality of not just black folk either, because this is a black person, but not just black folk. This is just a reality of our condition at this moment. So hopefully you guys appreciate that. Let me see if I can go back to the chat. Let me see what you guys are saying. So let's see. Kofi says, you know, Yvette pulled that same trick on BAs the other day. Said she is the new James Baldwin and said black folk should accept gays. Dang. She's the new James Baldwin and black folk. Yeah, I mean, look, I understand. I understand if they're trying to push the alphabet agenda. If you guys remember, as you guys study the ancient Egyptians, the Assyrians, the ones who conquered us, had the alphabet agenda. They had the alphabet agenda. It's an old, ancient thing that white folk were doing, you know? Real Black Gentleman, Kofi, that's wild. So, Real Black Gentleman also says, I revere the efforts that my black people have done. They are unmatched in many regards, but I ain't falling for the ADOS mission creep. Never liked that term ADOS. Reminds me of denial of service. Yeah. And Real Black Gentleman says he's American born. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not really all for that super Negro talk. But actually, now we could transition to the last Pan-Africanist. And, it's really not good to call this gentleman a Pan-Africanist because he's, like I said, he was another one of the keynote speakers when I was at that, it was at the Marcus Garvey conference, right? But I want you guys to understand, this is actually something that we have to just grasp, okay? Let me tell you guys this. Humans are not more valuable than livestock, okay? Value is subjective. It is not objective. Okay, you go to a Fulani person and say, "Hey, give me your cow. I'm worth more than a cow." He will shoot you. And when we were reading "Wretched of the Earth" by Frantz Fanon, we went over the subject of the Algerian who would kill his neighbor over food. Who finds that food is more important than neighbors. There's just a way of humans, right? There's no value behind you. So I say this, the quote I would say is, leave those in error who love their error. But I want you to get this too. Okay? So this is actually, some people consider this to be the best, or at least when I was younger. So like I said, I was organizing maybe 10 years ago, and I asked his brother, I said, who's the best living Pan-Africanist right now? Because, he was an Umar fan, so I was like, who's the best one? The best, so on and so forth. And he was like, it's got to be Baruti. And I like Baruti. Baruti, like part of the reason why I self-published on Amazon was because Baruti said that's the best way to go, right? But I'm going to say this. We can't keep pushing the narrative of reparations in this way, okay? Or really, period, really we can't. But in this way of how much am I worth? Look, I'll tell you guys right now. This is one of the things this is why we have to avoid the African American dialogue or diatribe or the logic, the ideology behind the African American, because this is like I said, this is one of the best black nationalists in America, and he's trying to tell us that there's no price tag that could. There's no price tag for reparations. Like reparations is too high a cost. It's too, nobody could afford to pay us reparations. But I'm going to explain to you guys, this is actually not something that we should be saying. So I'm going to put this in the Pan-Africanist thing. Although, obviously, he's a good guy. He's made a school and all that kind of stuff. So he's a good guy. But this mentality right here is something that we have to avoid. So that's just the pretext.
How do you put a price tag on taking away our sisters' ability to have babies surgically? How do you put a price tag on babies that were left in their baskets in a ravine under some trees as their parents were in the field and they were kept there to keep them out of the hot sun? Babies. And the thunderstorm came and the parents wanted to run to their babies, and the overseers, the drivers, wouldn't let them. And then the storm came. And by the time they got there, because at that point they broke free. And they ran toward their babies. But by the time they got there, that place had flooded. And all those babies were dead. How do you put a price tag on that? What's that worth? What mathematically, what number, what dollar amount are we going to put on that? Having a foot cut off, what kind of price tag are you going to put on that? Being hung for trying to learn to read. How do you put a price tag on something like that? I don't understand how we can calculate. Making a people menticidal. Making them hate themselves, making them hate their texture of their hair, making them hate their facial features, making them hate.
Yeah, so I want you guys to understand, look, the price tag on that is $0. Like, I'm not a white person, but I could tell you that anybody listening to that, any white person listening to that, anybody really, would say $0. $0. There's no price tag on that. If you cut off a cow's leg, the cow can't sue you. The cow can't sue you. There's no price tag. There's no real, like, again. That's why I emphasize again. Value is subjective. It's not objective. There's no, you said making people menticidal. No one cares. And the thing is that this happened. Of course, white people will tell you this happened a long time ago. You'll be like, hey, it didn't happen a long time ago. We're still feeling the effects. Nobody cares. They won't care. Nobody's going to care. The things that they do to livestock, and the fact that they were under the impression that you too were livestock. Like, they were under the impression that you were livestock, for all intents and purposes. There's no price tag. Now if you want to avenge that, or if you want to do something about it, then sure, go do something about it. They're not going to. They would understand it and also not understand it. They won't necessarily sit by and let you do it, but if you can do it, then go and do it. If that's what you want to do. But realistically speaking, yeah, this whole, hey, you did us so bad, and therefore, we're going to eloquently explain how you did us bad. It has its limits. Okay? It has its limits. And that's something that we're not really getting, is that nobody honestly cares. No one. It sucks for us, I guess. It sucks for us, but again, nobody's really going to shed a tear over that. A lot of misfortune, but again, there's no price tag. It's $0. It's like, you made us menticidal, okay? Right now, you let us abandon a baby, okay? Like why would they pay you for that? I don't. And again, it's not even like it was a baby. I remember one time we were having this reparations conversations, right? And this woman said, if you want to understand reparations, you got to look at tort law, right? Tort law. And so I looked up tort law, and the way how tort law works, and I think I mentioned this on the Discord actually, right? But the way how tort law works is that, you can only sue somebody for damages they've done to you personally. And you have to have legal standing. So I think there was actually I'll actually quote some of the things from the Discord just to give you guys some context. Somebody put up that, Kofi put up some West African, so basically there was a space that said, we owe Black Americans reparations. The West Africans owe Black Americans reparations, right? And so I think I pointed out, I said, look, no one owes anyone reparations, right? But I decided to explain. I said, look, the enslaved Africans at the time were promised by a general, not by the president, but by a general, 40 acres and a mule out of sympathy and as a reward for fighting for the Union. So they were sympathetic, like the general was sympathetic, and he wanted to reward Black people for fighting in the Union. But he had no authority to do it, right? Either way, a particular group of Africans who did fight for the Union were promised 40 acres and a mule. Not every Black person, just the Black people who fought, right? Just like, not every Black person is promised $3,000 from Ukraine, just the Black people who are going to fight for Ukraine, right? That's it. So he says, I said, no one considered paying back pay or damages, though, let alone 8 generations later. I don't know how many generations after slavery we are, but I'll just say 8. So he says, normally you'd pay citizens damages done them personally, right? That's a tort law thing. The enslaved Africans weren't citizens in America, and their descendants weren't personally enslaved. So as far as Africa paying, none of the governments around today participated, right? The Nigerian government didn't participate, so on and so forth. As far as, so I said Dahomey. So Dahomey is one of the people that you might say did participate, right? But Dahomey doesn't exist. But again, you couldn't sue Dahomey, and you have no legal standing with Dahomey. never mind that it doesn't exist anymore. So even if Dahomey did exist, you couldn't sue Dahomey because, again, you don't have any, like, there's no law in Dahomey that says that they have to pay people that they've sold, And again, the fact that they sold you doesn't mean that they enslaved you, It just means that they sold you. But they don't have to pay you for that sale because you were a prisoner of war. And I think I actually continue the conversation in the Discord because somebody saying it's a good point. It's like they're prisoners of war, and like I said, imagine in Ukraine the soldiers surrendered to the Russians, so Russia sells them to Turkey, and Turkey enslaves them for 400 years. Why would Russians pay back pay? So it's really a complicated thing. But as Black Americans tend to articulate, or Black people in general tend to articulate, it's like, hey, you owe me for what you've done to me. And it's like nobody owes you anything. Like, nobody owes you anything. People are taking from you because you're weak. That's it. Like, people take from you because they're weak. Because you're weak and because they don't really think there's going to be any consequences for it. It's like, unfortunately, there are, all right, there are men who attack other men and there are men who attack women. Okay? Same kind of attack or even a different type of attack. But the reality is that they do it because they don't believe there's any consequences from that man or woman. And they don't owe them anything in return. Now, part of the reason why you form nations is to protect men and women from those men who would do things if they feel like there are no consequences otherwise. So that's part of why you form a nation. But because you haven't formed a nation, like, nobody cares. Nobody, like, you're not going to receive the justice you want because, again, you have not formed the power. As Marcus Garvey says, power. No. Marcus Garvey says the only protection against injustice in man is power, physical, financial, and scientific. You have to form power, and that means a nation. You have to form a nation if you want to be defended. But if you don't form a nation, or if your nation is weak, or if your nation is conquered, people will have their way with you, and you'll have no redress. After this conflict with Ukraine, a lot of the Ukrainians may suffer, and, like, for instance, the Ukrainians who lost their houses, right? They're going to say, "Hey, Russia, can you pay me for my house?" And Russia's going to say, "No, shut the fuck up. Go eat your cereal," and that's it. Like, we won the war. Or they won the war. KW Don 7 says, what did James Baldwin do other than articulate and complain about racism while sleeping with its perpetrators? And that's the thing, that a lot of Black people just complain about racism and articulate about it. And a lot of them might not sleep with the perpetrator, but, okay, but what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You're not going to get any white person to give you anything more. Like, the only thing but again, I mean, people should have known Yvette was a queer, so, like she's a queer interracialist, so I don't see, like, she is kind of like James Baldwin. She's just a lot lighter, and a lot, well, I don't know. I mean, they're both kind of homely, With regards to a reparations bill or tab, Dr. Bobby Wright taught that blood debts can only be paid in blood. Yeah, but these people are not trying, like, none of these people are trying to get blood. He made the fake Nat Turner account with William Styron. Who made... James Baldwin, yeah. EL, in the book Asafo, or Message to the Warriors, Baruti has a list of Africans to not follow for various reasons. He said that Baldwin was a rainbow, and Baldwin was on the list. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, Baldwin's dead, so you can't follow a dead person. But yeah, pretty much... the thing is this, realistically speaking, like, there's... Like, I could think, like, very few... people from America or the American consciousness and the American ideology that you should follow. In fact, I think one of the reasons why I even got into the book making situation is because a lot of the ideologies out there, like, again, what are you asking for reparations for? First off, white folk, they're not going to be convinced that they owe you anything. White people fully understand. They fully understand the idea of punishing a people for the actions of their government. That's the thing that I didn't mention today. But one of the things that they're trying to punish the Russian citizens for what Putin's doing, right? With the Ukrainian invasion. So they perfectly understand. But they're still not going to do it to themselves. You understand? They're still not going to do it to themselves. They might demand it of other people, or they might use their power, their influence to harm Russian citizens. But to ask Russia to harm its own citizens is stupid. And that's what black Americans tend to do. They tend to ask America to harm their own white citizens, which is just stupid. It's just stupid. Like, no. And that's just saying, like, the thing is that if I were an African American leader, in a sense, I would not utter the words reparations. Seriously. I would not utter it seriously. I might bring it up for a little bit of kudos points or whatever, but I wouldn't utter it seriously. I would say, look, we have to seriously get a nationhood together or something. But this idea of, well, you know, as soon as it's how could you put a price tag? Like, yeah, the price tag is zero. Like you're not better than the cow to this white boy. You know, if they take a cow's baby, you know, and like, friends, I remember I think I saw an episode of this cartoon called South Park. You know, it's a little bit liberal, I guess, right? And they showed how veal came about. And the idea is that you would take a baby cow and just chain it together, like chain them all together so that they don't develop, so that they don't move around, so they live their lives laying down, so that their meat is especially soft after you kill them, right? That's what they're doing. Like, they just see it as a means to an end. They're not going to compensate this cow, and you might say, well, look, we're human beings, and we're not cows, and therefore, so on and so forth. But, like, you are under the impression that means something to people. You're under the impression that means something to people. But it doesn't. Ball was on the list. EL says, the nation is what we lost in the Mafia. Enemies want us to think we only lost individual freedom, but we lost the protection of our own nation. We lost leadership. We lost manhood. We lost womanhood. I don't know if you guys remember the African affirmation I used to say at the end of podcasts, but one of the things I noticed is that, like, realistically speaking, a lot of us right here, right? The way how we were born, a lot of us genetically are predisposed into leadership positions, into warrior positions. A lot of us. Like, if you look at my ancestry, in fact, I'll be honest with you guys, I got Maroons on both sides of my family. You know? My grandfather is said to have been, like, a very intelligent man. He was an engineer, in fact, right? I mean, obviously, in Jamaica, whatever that means, right? But he was an engineer. What was taken from me was that, realistically speaking, if I was born in Africa and Africa wasn't molested, I might have been from in a better family. I might have been in an engineering family. Who knows? You know? Possibility. But what I'm reduced to is what you see now. You know, it's not to say that I can't achieve better heights or do so on and so forth, but, like, even in my best, like, for instance, when I was an astrophysics student or I could have been an astrophysicist for white folk. You know, what they took from us is that we had roles in our nations that we're supposed to go back and retrieve. And they took that from us. And it's really imperative for us to realize that we have national roles that we have to restore for ourselves. And us, you know, diddle-doddling and twiddling our fingers and waiting for somebody else to do it, it's not going to happen. You have to restore your own family lineage, in a sense, your own familial role, and you might not get back to the same country you were from. You might not get back to the same civilization. That the empire that you were stolen from is gone. The kingdoms you were stolen from are gone. The villages you were stolen from, they're vestiges of what they once were. But yes, you've lost quite a bit. You've lost your functionality. You lost your manhood and your womanhood. And white folk, we know that white folk took that from us. You know, Check Onto Job writes about how white people said, hey, look, you're no longer going to patrol your community. And black folk just went along with it. Well, not that we went along with it because we lost the war, but that's it. That was the terms of that was the peace condition. That was the peace offering. Okay, no more men. And it's like, okay. We died. Negro, necro. I'm joking, but anyway. The nation is what we lost. Yeah, all right. So the last thing Europeans want is equality with Europe. It doesn't make any sense. They say, why would you have equality with Africans in Europe or in America? Why would the Polish want Africans running the show? Like, why would they want that? Like, imagine the president of Poland is a black man. Why would any Polish person want that? It doesn't make any sense. It's like having the president of Nigeria as a white man. Like, why would any reasonable Nigerian want that? Now, of course, you still see that, but like, why would you want that? Real Black Gentleman says South Park OMG. So I didn't explain to you guys. South Park is like some American cartoon. It's supposed to be for kids, but also for adults. But it's really for adults. But kids used to watch it. Real Black Gentleman says Africa could be Europe's #1 ally, but they on that uppity shit. Hopefully we're not going to be Europe's #1 ally. Europe too busy out here teaching Africans bullshit. Yeah. But anyway, so that's actually the whole show coming on to 3 hours. So I'm going to wish you guys all a happy whatever. So let's close it out. Shem Hotep, Uncle Jah Seneb Neb, Amen Ma'at, Dua Netcher. And of course, appreciation for all of you guys. If you guys want the African information, let's do it. Let's go. So you got to hold hands with somebody next to you and to say, we are an African people, robbed from our homeland, robbed of our names, our languages, our cultures, our religions, our womanhood, our manhood, our sisterhood, our brotherhood, our motherhood, our fatherhood, our selfhood, and our self-respect. But we shall rise, never to fall again. Up, you mighty race. You can accomplish what you will. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. I think I might have said rather of our nationhood. All right, peace.